How you doing, John?
Okay, Doris, fine. We got a big group here.
Yes, we do. Hi, Will.
Greetings.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Herb. How are you?
Good,
Hi,
good,
Herb.
good.
Hi,
Thank
Fred.
you.
Hi, John.
Hey, John.
How you doing?
Chip.
Good.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Hillary.
And I see,
Hi, Marianne.
yep, and Lily, I think everybody is here. Oh, is Hillary here?
Yes, Hillary is here. She's
Where is she?
Hillary. You're on mute.
How
there.
about
You
that?
go.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are. It's October 7th, 2021, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. This is the Sag Harbor Village Harbor Committee. Present, we have Will Sharp, Lily Fell, Herb Samble, John Parker, and Hillary Thayer, and myself, Marianne Eddy. Are we ready to approve any of the minutes that Doris has here on the agenda?
They were all sent and emailed circulate to all last month.
Okay. I can't
No.
say that I can't say that I'm on top of it.
And they were all edited and
Were they all edited?
yes.
That's right.
Yep.
I would take a motion to be more mindful for next month and to adjourn those minutes until November, unless other people are willing and able to. I'm sorry, I did not tend to that. So, any other thoughts? John, Lily, Herb?
Well,
I agree with
wasn't-
you, Marianne.
Yeah,
I
I
agree
wasn't,
with you.
I wasn't fully present at the last two meetings, so I can't attest to those minutes.
Right. Let's, I think I'd like a motion to adjourn the acceptance of those minutes until the November meeting. And I will be proactive in getting all of you to look at those before the meeting so that we can accept those minutes, okay, in a timely fashion.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to adjourn the acceptance of the meeting, the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Lily. Second, John, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments from the public at this time? This can be on any topic, including any agenda items that may have a closed public hearing. You
I don't
see,
see, right, I'm looking right now, Marianne. I don't see any raised hands so far.
okay,
Nothing on my end.
all right. So then let's move on. On to old business, continued public hearings. We have two items. The first one being 18 Bluff Point Road. Chick, can you remind us? We didn't have a meeting last month, and just bring us back up to date on this.
Sure. I was going to share my screen if Doris would let me.
Sure, I'll do that. Hold on.
I don't know if there's someone here representing the applicant, but I can project the image for 18 Bluff Point Road. It'll remind you, give a brief description, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Okay, you're ready, Chick. I do see Haley Willis. I'm not sure if she's representing.
Hi, yep, I'm here for 18 Bluff.
Oh, okay.
Is this image visible now?
Sure is.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is 18 Bluff Point Road, Upper Sag Harbor Cove to the east. My understanding is that this deck was constructed and they're looking to legalize it at this time. Everything else is pretty much existing on the property. We had asked the applicant to look into providing some buffer because there was not a lot of buffer existing, and certainly that's a big part of what we look to do and achieve. And a revegetation plan was submitted. Let me see if that comes up. And it's a good native revegetation plan. These are the species: winterberry, purple lovegrass, little blue stem, low bush blueberry, American beach grass, and seaside goldenrod. I found the plan to be well thought out. And I think that's a summary of where we were. There have been a number of hearings where it's been discussed. And I think I've characterized it and what the applicant has proposed. And if anyone has anything to add, please go ahead.
Well, two questions. I think, one, do you have like the square footage of the buffer vis-a-vis what it would be if we were to expect the 50-foot setback?
I would certainly want the applicant to answer that.
What's proposed now is roughly the same as what was initially proposed on this project. And thank you, Chick, for your introduction, but I want to highlight the most significant change since our last appearance before the committee, which is that we're proposing to install the brand new IA septic system. We are abandoning the old system, which is located, I don't know if it would be helpful for me to share my screen. I have a version of what we're looking at where the septic stuff is noted in red, so it's a little clearer if that would be helpful.
Yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and
Okay.
share my screen if that's
All right, Haley, give me 1 minute and I will let you share, okay? Hold on, please.
Okay.
Okay, you're all set.
Okie doke. So let me pull up. Sorry, my computer is not having a good day. Okay. Can you see our plan on your screens?
Yes.
Okay, so now everything's shown in red, which is a little bit easier. So the existing sanitary to be abandoned is located in this area, and the new system is going to be installed up here under the driveway, which was sort of the only conforming location that we could find.
Okay.
So we have a 5,500 square foot proposed buffer, as well as the new IA system.
A 5,500 square foot buffer, and that's compared to what exists right now.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I have that calculation off the top of my head. What exists now is very little.
It's in
letter,
green.
Haley, you would, I'm sorry to interrupt. You had submitted a letter, Haley, on September 29th that does indicate, and maybe you can verify, that there is a pre-existing non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer, which is 5,656 square feet.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, that's right. I was trying to find that piece of paper. So yeah, the existing is 5,656 square feet. We're proposing an additional 5,500 square feet of what's currently lawn that is to be reclaimed with native species.
Okay. I have a small screen, so I can't quite see. What is the depth of including the old and the new at any random point? Is it like 25 feet or 10 feet or 30 feet, or because the property is surrounded by water on 3 sides, correct?
Correct. Correct. Wetlands on 3 sides. Yep.
Will
So
and I
the-
walked this property. It was extremely narrow. I mean, yeah, I think in some areas you can see what, 10 feet, 11 feet?
I'm having trouble really seeing it on this survey, what the deepest point, what the measurements are of the depth. We have the area calculations, but I'm not sure that we have point to point.
Well, you have 20 feet in,
This may be 20 feet here.
yeah, 20 feet right there. So you could
Yeah.
use that as a scale. And you can add another 10 feet right there, would be 30 feet at that string. Out of the deck, it's 10 feet. West of the deck is 13 plus the deck. So Marianne, there's a lot of different dimensions, but
Yeah.
I guess is the dark green currently all lawn, and that's the area that'll be proposed for
Correct.
natives. Mhm.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your client coming forward and agreeing to put in an IA system. I know that we brought that up last time, and it seemed like there was considerable resistance to that idea. So I really appreciate that. And this is kind of retrospective, right? Some of this work that we have a canine member here, and it's not mine.
Yeah, that's
God,
fine.
it's not mine.
Not mine.
Not mine.
I lost my train of thought. Yes, to an IA system, and yes to more plantings. Will, do you have any thoughts here as to whether or not this is something where there was a deck constructed years ago? Is that correct?
This is in the spirit of what we asked, and I'm glad to see that they were able to fit the IA, where people had said in previous applications that they couldn't put it in a driveway.
Right.
So somebody's done some work here, and that's what we asked for.
Yeah, we
Right.
had to adjourn over several of your meetings.
Mhm.
And it was because we've been working on this, you know, our client, I may have mentioned this before, he's a fisherman by trade. He always wanted to do the right thing here. It was just a matter of logistics. So he hired the engineer, he got the design done. There will be quite a bit of work that needs to be done to dig up what's existing and to install the new IA under the driveway. So some of those logistics are what took so long in coming back. But I think what we have here is certainly better than what was even before the deck was installed. So this is ending up as an overall real benefit to the wetlands on this property.
Is this a primary residence?
It is,
It is.
yes.
So he's eligible for getting some payment for the IA system.
Yeah, he's factored those into his
Great.
plan, and yeah.
Right.
Herb, your thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm very impressed that these guys came back with this. We were advised early on that it would be inappropriate for us to sort of demand that, and that it was disproportionate to the scope of the permit being requested. So I applaud the applicant. I was over there on the site today. I do have one small question. I noticed that in the permit application, there are some dry wells being proposed. I also noticed that on the house, there are these sort of built-in gutters at the roof. Is it the applicant's intention to connect the roof drains to the dry wells?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. All right.
Chick, what is your thought about that? I haven't been to this property today. I haven't been there for a couple of months, so my memory is not as clear as hers. I think that's a really good point. And I think that, you know, all the drainage that's coming off the roof would hopefully go into a dry well. Chick, does that look feasible to you from where you are?
It is a little difficult to tell. There is a new proposed dry well on the north side of the one-story frame dwelling. Haley's pointing at it now. But it's not clear whether that's for driveway.
Yeah.
I wonder if this maybe would.
A dry well down by the pool, but I assume that that's for the pool because that's a requirement as well.
Can you use a pool And dry well for a roof drain?
Good question, Will. I mean,
Conceptually, you drain the pool not very often.
yeah.
And
I think
if it's
been-
sized
I actually think
properly,
it's been done. I think
Yeah.
it has been done.
I mean, you're not going to drain the pool in a big rain, I wouldn't think.
Exactly.
No.
So maybe that would be something to look into to see if the drywall on the west side is, I suspect that's in there for roof drain. And I don't know, I haven't looked at these drawings that carefully, but if there's a rain runoff calculation, a roof calculation. There needs to be actually for the building department.
I've got another option possibly. This currently this property currently has one or more cesspools. Is that correct?
In the old, in the old septic system, I would think so.
They
The
can be
old one,
changed-
yeah, here.
They can be changed to be used as dry wells for runoff.
They can be?
Can be, yes.
Yeah, the county will let them do that?
Well, you may have to get permission. Well, you have to close down the old ones anyway,
Yeah.
and you have to get permission to do that, I believe. But there is a process. Apparently, this has been discussed whereby they may be able to be approved to be used as dry wells.
There is a calculation. I don't know if it's on the plan that Haley has there, but there's a proposed drywell calculation on the plan that shows the building area is 2,666 square feet. They calculate the required capacity and indicate that 2 8-foot by 6-foot dry wells are being installed. So my expectation is that it is shown on the plan. And those 2 new proposed dry wells, one to the south side of the house and one to the north.
Roof.
And those are
Depending on-
separate, those are separate from the one for the swimming pool. We have a total of 3.
No, I
I don't see a third one.
right. I only see 2, but they are sized for the roof runoff.
All right.
So they're either using the southerly one for pool overflow or backwash, as we had
Yeah.
talked about before. But it certainly is picking up the stormwater from the roof. And that's something that, to my knowledge, doesn't exist now. So that's another improvement.
I would,
I suggest that you look at the cesspool option. I mean, this is something that's been discussed at the sewage treatment plant expansion committee that I'm on, with something proposed by Cameron Engineering, where there will be septic systems that are abandoned when they're hooked up to the sewer treatment plant, and the possible use of those is as dry wells.
I love that idea. Do the old cesspools have to be taken out, the brickwork, et cetera, and you just?
no, they're filled up. It depends on the structural integrity of the existing. But you know what? If that drywall next to the pool is sufficiently sized, I suspect it would suffice also for the pool. I mean, the pool, what's the ratio, 5% or something of the pool volume for a dry well? It's a small
Yeah, it's in the
number.
code under chapter 244. I may have to double check it. To answer John Parker's question, there is a notation where the new sanitary system is going, and it's actually going to overlap the existing sanitary system.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not an option here then, but it
It's
may
not
be.
an option here. They
Okay.
just don't have the room.
Okay.
Well,
But-
maybe subject to that clarification, and maybe that can come to Chick. I mean, the fact that we're getting this IA system as part of this project, I mean, for me, that to me is the game changer. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't, I think we've talked about all of these things, but I don't feel there are any unanswered questions, depending on how the board wants to move on this. They do
Chick,
contain
tell
the
me,
roof
I mean,
runoff.
if the roof runoff is just a matter of like gutters, like, I mean, I just recently had dry wells put in my gutters. I mean, you have to do some work there to get the rainfall from the roof to go into a dry well, right? It's not like it just automatically appears.
That's
Is
correct.
that not
But
true?
again, they're showing it, they're sizing it.
They
and-
are showing it. They're showing it from the roof here.
No, I don't see all the leaders and gutters, but that could certainly be a condition.
Okay,
Purpose.
The
of putting
the
those dry
gutters are
wells-
there. The gutters are integrated into the roof design. So the gutters are actually there. It's
This is the leaders, which are,
leaders. Yeah. Yeah.
that's pretty
Right.
simple
I'm
stuff.
just saying I don't see it on the plan because I just
Right.
don't gonna get to that level of detail.
all right. So what I'm beginning to feel here is that people are happy. They're delighted that we have an IA system, that we have increased buffer. And there's just this little question about whether or not we can get a connection between the roof runoff and the dry wells. So I suggest we ask Chick to write a decision and to put that as a condition of the approval, subject to his, his agreement that the situation is taken care of, and we go forward.
I agree.
Everybody agree?
Mhm.
Okay, may I have a motion, please, to that effect?
We need to close the public hearing, Marianne,
Okay,
first.
so may I have, I'm sorry, I just lost my focus for a moment. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing here on 18 Bella Point Road?
I so move.
Thank you. A second, please. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Project.
It's a great project.
I'm late in saying this, but did you ask whether there were any other comments? Because we did have an open public hearing.
You're right, we did have an open public hearing. I did not. Are there any comments from the audience? Are there any hands raised? Anybody trying to make a comment, Doris?
Looking right now.
I say that because I know at the last hearing that I was at, there was at least one comment about this by a neighbor, and I don't.
Right. Right.
Thank you, John. Thank you for bringing that. I don't see any hands. No.
Okay. All right. So we made a motion, we passed a motion. Chick will be writing up a decision subject to his approval of a plan about the roof runoff into the dry wells.
Okay, so we just
Thank
need
you
a
very
motion to, for that, to carry this over to the next meeting
Okay.
for decision.
And we want to make a motion?
I move.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Next on our agenda is 8 John Street. And Doris, I'm confused because I thought the public meeting on 8 John Street was closed.
It is. If you recall, we had closed the hearing on this. The applicant at that point said they might want to present additional information that might warrant us reopening the hearing. They
Right.
decided not to. So basically, but there was confusion at the August meeting because some members of the public were told that the matter would not be considered that night. So we held it over till September, which is now October, just to see if there was any other member of the public that wanted to comment on this before the board rendered a decision.
But didn't we also to decide that they had to make those comments at the beginning of the meeting under the public comment period?
It doesn't really matter. The
Okay,
hearing's
good.
closed. If they were, it's timely here.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this matter, but the hearing was closed. The applicant did not present any additional information.
Okay,
But again, there were people that showed up in August that wanted to speak on this that were sent home, basically.
Okay.
We
So,
were
right.
erring on the side of caution.
okay. So Doris, do you see anybody with their hand raised? Kevin, are you doing it through the chat, or are you just raising your hand
I
like that?
am raising my hand. I can't find the hand raising in the chat.
Okay.
I think you go in under reactions, but we saw your hand. You want to introduce yourself and give us your address?
Yes, please. Kevin McAllister. I'm founder and president of Defend H2O. My offices are at 3780 Noyak Road. For benefit of the board may recall my credentials in coastal zone management. And I will also share that I've been involved earlier in my career extensively in dock permitting, both looking at primary impacts, secondary impacts, and long-term impacts. And I realize, I'm, I guess, a bit late on comments to this project, but I appreciate the opportunity. I would really urge the board to decline approval of a structure within the inlet in this area. I think ultimately it will set precedents for additional structures on adjacent properties. The board is well aware of, obviously, the water quality impairments in Otter Pond. Over time, I think, this has to be an open corridor for management activities that might come forward in the future. And any form of structure in this area could potentially impede those actions, whether it be modifying the culvert, it could be really opening it up where there's actual enhanced exchange in this area, possibly even dredging to enhance flushing. So again, I think with respect to this particular inlet, I think the board would be well served to, again, decline any approval of structure and perhaps even go a step further if you have the ability to do it, almost establish a no structure zone through this inlet area. So again, it would not interfere and be a problem for later management actions. So that's what I'd like to share. And again, thank you for considering these comments at the 11th hour. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thiel, for inviting it as well.
Anybody else have a comment on this particular application? Okay, I think we are willing to move on. My sense is that this application is going to be denied. Do we make a motion to deny? It comes up so seldom. Do we make a motion to deny the application?
Yes.
Okay, can
Fred, let
somebody,
me just, if I could quickly interrupt, wouldn't it be appropriate to ask me to structure a decision that justifies and provides the reasoning and logic?
Yes,
right,
that would be
It
really
would be a
good.
motion to ask me to prepare something for the next meeting.
Yeah, instead of asking you to prepare an approval, we're going to ask you to prepare a denial, basically.
Right.
And I would pay, Chica, I'm just going to mention this, during the hearing process, there was a lot of attention paid to aesthetics and view sheds. I would just point in particular to the standard that relates to whether the dock will despoil views from public parklands or roadways,
right.
in addition to whatever other things you might find, but that seemed to be a big part of the hearing. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that.
Yes, and we had pointed that out, those sections of chapter 285 previously, so that will absolutely be part of it.
And I think even the LWRP, coastal consistency, don't you think that there's issues there with the view shed?
We had looked at that, and that certainly is a factor as well.
Okay. All right, so let me read somebody.
I would also add that we had pointed out, I think, other options that were discussed that might meet the requirements for the applicant, for the use that the applicant was suggesting.
I'm not as clear on that, but I think that where we are right now, I think what we want to do is ask Chick. Can I have a motion, please, to ask Chick to write up a declination of this application? Can somebody make a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. That Will first, Lily second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Marianne, I hate to interrupt. You're switching to the next hearing. I'm actually going to have to switch computers.
Okay.
I'm going to sign off for a minute. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Okay.
Let me ask a question about this project. We all looked at it, and I think the one takeaway we had was that the connecting body between Otter and the larger body of water was really foul. Is there a process that can precipitate CPF fund to look at cleaning this up? Is that, we've talked about it. I would like to just put that in the record that it needs to be, how can we take that to the next level? Who do we bring that to?
Well, your memory and my memory are a little different.
No doubt.
Well, on this specific issue, there is a strong current that goes through that culvert.
Yeah.
A lot of flushing that goes on.
With the detritus, if you look at low tide, at the wharf side, which is south side, there's a lot of foul material in there. To Kevin's point, I don't know if dredging it, my question is, how do we bring a CPF awareness to a project like this?
I agree, Will.
Well, that's a good discussion in a general way, not just for this specific issue. And I think Fred can probably give us the ABCs of how to do that. I believe it involves getting the village behind things and sort of nominating this for consideration. Fred, are you more?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, 20% of the CPF can be used for water quality improvement projects. I think we'd first have to identify whether any of the categories that CPF can fund would be applicable here. That's something, I'll take it upon myself to, maybe together with Chick, because he could provide the engineering part of what projects, what might work as to what you want to do. See if there's anything we might be able to suggest to the village board that might be eligible for CPF funding. So he and I'll follow up with him and we'll see if we can identify something.
Much appreciated.
Fred, if I can add to that, the village's water quality improvement project plan was prepared by Nelson Pope and Voorhees in 2016, and it identified, I think it's 25 projects, mainly stormwater projects around the village, and this was used to apply for the CPF water quality funds at that time, both in East Hampton and in Southampton. East Hampton Town has requested that the village update that plan, and that would include selecting new projects, as well as giving updates, I suppose, on the old projects. If the village were to do that for both the East Hampton and Southampton sides, they could look at various projects, like this, and propose them in a new plan, a new 5-year plan, essentially, of water quality improvement projects.
Okay, all something for the Village Board of Trustees.
Excuse me?
All something for the Village Board of Trustees.
Yes, and at the last, I mentioned this at the last village trustee meeting in September, that East Hampton Town had requested that. East Hampton Town is updating their project plan and wanted to include the village's new projects in the East Hampton plan.
Okay, are we ready to move on? So now we are in the new business category. Sorry, right. So we have
36 John Street, actually, I think needs to be, that was an old business, right? That needs to be adjourned until, they're requesting an adjournment until November. Did I see that?
Right, you're right there, Fred.
Okay.
It is old business. Can I have a motion to adjourn this until the November meeting? What's the date of the November meeting, Doris?
November 4th.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn 36 John Street to the November 4th meeting?
I so move.
Thank you. Thank you, Lily. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we move on to new business. We have 188 Redwood. Is there somebody here to speak to this application?
Me again.
Oh, hello.
Excuse me,
Hello.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
we need to open the public hearing first.
All right. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Thank you. Second,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself and give your address again, please? Haley Willis, representing the applicant, the Adam Miller Group, 2462 Main Street, Bridgehampton, New York.
Thank you.
Do you want me to start, or is Chick gonna say a few words?
Start. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So the applicant is seeking to perform somewhat urgent repair on a failing bulkhead on his property, and also to construct a 24-foot extension to the existing bulkhead return on the south side of the property. The extension is needed to eliminate the risk of any further erosion on that side of the property upland there, to allow better shoreline stability. The work that's actually going to be involved is fairly minimal. We think it can take place over the course of 2 days, so there won't be a significant disturbance within the area. And we have a trustee's permit here for this work, and a condition of that permit was having the neighbor sign on in a formal letter agreement to plant salt tolerant native plantings along the area that's being disturbed. There is also part of the proposed work is this is going to allow for increased ecological quality and habitat, especially as it relates to the diamondback terrapins. They inhabit Spartina shorelines for their nesting area, as well as for their food supply. So the revegetation that's proposed is 270 square feet on where the area is being disturbed. And if you'd like, I can share my screen to show our bulkhead plan.
I think that would be a good idea.
You can go ahead and share it.
Thanks. Is that working?
It's coming
There
up.
we go.
Coming up.
Okay.
There you go.
This is the area that we're talking about, that we're going to repair the existing bulkhead here and then add this 24-foot extension.
Chick, did you have a chance to visit this property?
Yes, I am familiar with the site. There is some erosion. I know that in the complete letter to get this to the hearing, we had indicated that there are requirements under the code for an applicant to demonstrate the need for the project and look at alternatives, very similar to buffers and setbacks for structures and things like that. And it's not unlike what some people may be familiar with from East Hampton Town Code regarding shoreline restoration projects and how those are reviewed. So I would want to hear from the applicant, and we did make them aware of that through our letter finding it complete for the hearing, just how this will conform with the code requirements and the burden on the applicant.
So what sort of was the impetus for this application is that the neighbor actually did remove Phragmites from this area, and to sort of increase the beach space along the shoreline here. And that has resulted in, we can see the beginnings of erosion. I have some pictures somewhere. This is what it used to look like. And I have pictures, I'm sorry, pulling them up. Sorry, I had photos of what it looks like now. It has definitely been corrupted a bit, and there's, you know, you can see that the erosion is beginning to occur, and we don't want to go any further into the winter season without restoring the bulkhead because it's currently just not functional.
So we went down and looked at the area, and I noticed there's an area that has it sort of burlap stuffed things that are holding up the bulkhead. Is that, or that are acting as a bulkhead? Is that what they want to repair? And then behind that,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, after. My question was, so is that the area they want to repair? And then there's an area that has, I guess, beech trees. And then they want to put a bulkhead along there.
Yeah, the bulkhead is existing. So I think to the extent that you saw like sandbags that might have been placed there in the interim while this application is pending, just to sort of keep everything at bay. And then we would be extending the existing bulkhead by 24 feet back inland.
So, Chick, I mean, I went down there today too, and I just did not get I was not very comfortable with this plan. And extending that bulkhead, I don't think over a period of 3, 4, 5 years that's going to do anything but increase erosion. Maybe not right where the bulkhead is, but you know, going back towards, you know, landward. Chick, what are your thoughts on this?
Certainly, you know, bulkheads are of concern where they are interrupting littoral drift or affecting shoreline or have the potential to have scouring from wave action or tidal action. There's a tremendous amount of literature that finds that they can have adverse effect on wetlands and cause scouring. So the question really here is this an upland return or is this a bulkhead? You know, it is.
I don't know what an upland. I don't know what an upland return is.
Well, really just kind of the perpendicular part of a bulkhead that parallels the shoreline. And so, you know, I'm a little bit on the fence about this because I do know the concern over precedent with regard to bulkheads that do, you know, affect littoral drift and have all the effects that I mentioned before. You know, however, this is more of a kind of an upland structure that's beyond the existing bulkhead. So
right, but it's also a bulkhead because it's on the water as well, right? I mean, the water wraps around this end of the property.
It does, and there are vegetated wetlands on the neighboring property, which is of concern.
But aren't
so,
there?
As I said before, you know, it's really 285-9E2. There are requirements that, you know, would lead to a very detailed analysis of is the structure immediately necessary to prevent the loss or destruction of a principal building. I haven't heard that addressed. I don't believe that's the case here, but the applicant would have the burden to address that. Next is the threatened loss, destruction, or severe damage of a principal building or structure cannot be reasonably prevented by some other means. I didn't really see much in the lines of other types of shoreline stabilization, whether it's living shoreline, core logs, natural revegetation. I think those are all techniques that could be used here because the environment where this return or this bulkhead is proposed is not terribly dynamic. And it is behind existing vegetation of the neighboring property. So I would think a soft solution could work here, and I don't think that's been explored adequately. And that the erosion control structure is a minimum size, design, and physical extent to prevent loss, destruction, or severe damage.
Right.
and we haven't really looked at that. So I do think there are other options here. I do have concerns over the wetlands on the neighboring property, and I think there are other methods that can and should be explored.
Thank
So I
you.
don't know if this is helpful or if it answers your question, Chick, but there's an existing bulkhead, and then what we're extending is the bulkhead return. I'm not clear on what the difference is on those either, but I will certainly look into it.
Yeah, I think the issue here, Haley, is that, this property kind of, because of the existing bulkhead, it sticks out farther,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, and that there are wetlands and tidal inundation areas to the east on the neighboring property. So that, gives me some concern that a new structure, even though it seems like it's back from the existing shoreline parallel bulkhead, could have some adverse effect from scouring that I mentioned before.
So in
I
terms of,
I agree with everything you said, and I'd also be interested if you have a planting plan, because when we were down there, there's some it seemed to me, significant trees that were right there on that lot line. And I don't know what the future is of those trees if this plan were to be approved.
well, what I can show you, I think that this
Those trees probably do more to secure that shoreline than the bulkhead's going to.
so the trees, this is a picture sideways, but you can see that I believe these trees are down now. This is what was cleared. And as you can see, this is like sort of the erosion that we're concerned about, that everything is falling out the side of the existing bulkhead, as it were. So this would be
Right.
extended back to hold that together. But there's not much left here in the way of trees.
Haley, you and I went there today. Didn't we see significant trees that looked like they were right in the path of this extension? I mean, it's hard for me to look at a picture sideways.
I'm sorry.
Also,
Let me
we
try
looked at
to
it in the middle of
On your
the
computer.
fix that.
Chick, do you think when this property was developed that the bulkhead was built, some kind of retaining wall was built and it was backfilled to increase the footprint of the lot?
Oh, I do. That's certainly what it looks like based on aerial photographs.
Yeah. Yeah. So not much we can do about that, is there?
No.
No, but I think that Chick is right in saying that as you look at this area here where it's all brambled and it leads into the existing bulkhead extension, that to me, that sort of begs for a natural shoreline kind of answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chick, I have a question for you. Chick, quick question. How, along the lines of what Marianne just said, if the applicant were to attempt a solution to this using a more natural shoreline approach, how long would it take for that, for you to be able to say, yeah, it's working or it's not working? How long would something like that take to prove out?
Well, I mean, it's really up to the applicant to have a designer bring forward an alternate proposal that they feel would be successful. Depending on whether it's a softer solutions could include stone riprap, which, is the next step down from a hard bulkhead. It doesn't cause quite the scouring or have quite the impact that a vertical bulkhead structure has. Next would be, a core log type, probably several layers of core log. And so that's a decomposition material that will allow vegetation to establish. And it might be 1 or 2 seasons for that to really take hold. And I think the core logs would have some stabilizing effect even before the vegetation takes root and gets established. And then there could just be a grading and straight vegetation solution. And that's the one that probably would take a little longer, maybe two couple of years or, 3 to 4 seasons of growing to really see where it goes. But I'm just putting out options and talking about those alternatives that I think should be looked at. And it's really up to the applicant to engage their professional to design something that they feel would work, and then demonstrate that it's the least and it's, the softest solution that's going to provide the erosion control.
Right.
Unfortunately, I can't, real quick, I can't share my screen right now because of the issues I was having before, but looking at an aerial photograph, you can really see that the shoreline is at the end of the existing return at the 188 Redwood property. So that's why, that's certainly why the applicant feels something is needed, and that is legitimate, although it doesn't appear to be threatening the structure itself, which is part of the law.
Right.
But it also speaks to the issue that we were talking about before, that it is more of a shoreline structure that will, be next to tidal inundation and could have some of those negative impacts if it's a vertical bulkhead. So take a look at the aerial. I know you all went to the site, as have I, and that's why this discussion is healthy, and hopefully the applicant can look at those alternatives.
May I ask a question about the existing bulkhead that is damaged? Because that, it's there. It was there before our client bought this property. So it's already an existing structure that's fallen into disrepair. Is the objection specifically with regard to the extension, which we can look at alternatives for, and then we would be permitted to fix? I just can't imagine that we would just let the bulkhead kind of
No,
crumble.
you're right. You're right. And at least for me, from my perspective, what I'm having resistance to is the idea of extending that bulkhead for 24 feet. But Chick went there. He has a better idea of what's a damaged and vulnerable bulkhead. And we have approved the repair of bulkheads, but we don't really approve bulkheads new on, without precedent, So I think, like Chick said, I think you really need to go and look at some alternatives.
So part of
I think that there would be a very happy solution in a soft design, as opposed to, I'll just say, if it was my place, I would rather have a soft solution that makes that transition between the property and the bay less industrial looking.
Exactly.
And that would be, that would satisfy the concerns of the homeowner, and it would help. I think it would be a win-win situation.
Part of the challenge with this situation is that it's along the property line. So our client's bulkhead is in need of repair, and he was proposing to bolster it with the extension. But really, we're talking about a disturbed area on the neighbor's property. So for whatever it's worth, that's something that we kind of have to navigate. That's for us to deal with, but it's something to be aware of, that we were coming forward with what we can control, what's going to be on our property, to the extent that anything would spill over onto the neighbor, that's going to require, coordination.
The other
we
thing
can
that-
look at those soft
The other
designs.
thing is, you mentioned that the neighbor, dug up Phragmites. They just can't do that. They need to come to the harbor committee for any kind of, Phragmites mitigation, and it's pretty carefully monitored. So to the extent that they, yanked out all those Phragmites, that's part of what caused this problem, perhaps.
Agreed. Yeah. And it's our client wants to do the right thing in protecting the shoreline. It was obviously out of his control. It wasn't done with his knowledge or permission, certainly. So, we want to do the right thing and restore the shoreline as best we can.
This is an interesting problem. If you continue the bulkhead landward, you might not be doing the right thing for the neighbor. You might be doing the right thing for your property, for your client. So the right thing might be for the two people to get together and come up, and I don't, Chick and Fred, I don't know what the legal deal is here, but the solution to me is both lots need to get together and come up with a soft solution.
Yeah.
Because your client's concern is legitimate, but it would not satisfy the problem for the neighbor, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, so I don't know what
That's
I'm
all right. I don't think this is going to move any further tonight. Haley, do you feel comfortable going back to your client and discussing this as we've discussed it today, here, tonight?
Yeah, I wonder if Mr. Thiel has any input on this situation, given that the neighbor is somewhat involved. You know, our trustee's permit, was conditioned on a letter signed by the neighbor agreeing to plant, you know, salt tolerant plants along the disturbed area. So to some extent, he's involved, and there is a discussion around this, so we can broach that topic with them again. But I don't represent the neighbor, so it's a bit of a challenge. I can't speak for the neighbor in any way.
Right. We understand that. I
I
think
think that question was to Fred, but
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, I'm not sure that the Harbor Committee has a lot of authority. I'm not sure they can mandate the two property owners to work together. But it's you know, I think we're indicating that that's the best solution. So it would be helpful if you would explore that. I think that's what I would suggest here is, you know, it's as you say, it sounds as if the neighbor is already engaged here. So, you know, maybe for the long term for both property owners, it makes some sense here. You know, I think it's fairly clear that, you know, the extension of a hard solution doesn't meet with a lot of favor. So, and I think you have a responsibility to explore the soft options, as Chick mentioned. So, you know, there are property lines here, but the natural feature is, you know, doesn't pay attention to property lines. So it really does make sense, I think, to try to get a cooperative solution. You know, I'm not sure that we can mandate that, but I think it would be good for the applicant to explore that and report back to the board the next
Yeah, we
meeting.
can certainly try, and you know, in the absence of neighbor cooperation, our options may be somewhat limited, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Right. And I think, Chick, maybe you want to opine on this, but I think putting a 24-foot extension there just moves this problem back landward and out like 2 or 3 or 4 years. What is your thought? If we put a hard structure there, are we just going to have this same mess down the road?
yes, that's the issue. And again, I wish I could share, but looking at historic aerial photographs, there was a lot more vegetated wetland landward of the bulkhead and on the neighbor's property to the south previously. And, you know, that vegetated wetland, whether, you know, bogs, spartina alternate flora in the intertidal zone, is very effective in stabilizing the shoreline. So I do see a loss of that even from 2013 through 2020. And I did just pull up the letter with the neighbor that was sent to the trustees on August 7th, 2020, that does say that Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Spiegel have agreed to add additional salt tolerant plants to the area along their abutting property lines based on recommendations found in the Long Island Horticultural Resource Guide published by Cornell. That is an excellent solution in part for the 188 Redwood Road property, is to try and reestablish some of that salt marsh that was providing protection before, but seems to have been modified over the past couple of years, pretty recently. It's a fairly striking change over the past 4 years, or I should say 8 years.
And Cornell is also very up to speed on natural shorelines, as is the Peconic Estuary Partnership. They have a lot of information and histories and examples of these being very successful. And I
There's
think,
also a lot of literature on the east end, throughout the Peconic estuary about the impact of bulkheads. So,
Right.
Everything is moving towards soft solutions and living shorelines, and that's what we'd like to see here.
Chick, just to be fair here, you're looking at the aerial photos and historic ones, and I'm looking at them too. And one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is that all of the properties to the north of this property are fully bulkheaded. And they're bulkheaded much farther out into the water than this bulkhead is. To the south, all of the properties have no bulkheads. So basically, this property is somewhat of a transition from the fully bulkheaded properties to the properties that have no bulkhead. And I think that increases the problem here and you have to look at the whole shoreline, I think, and not just the one, the one property. They're really looking at trying to transition from all of those properties that have full bulkheads, all the way 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 properties, to the north, to a line of them where they're more natural. Was this bulkhead put in 2014? Do you know when it was put in?
I don't know when the original bulkhead was put in. I think it predates that, but I'm not sure.
I have a photo from 2014, which shows a barge with a crane on it, and it looks like maybe it's either working on the dock or the bulkhead.
okay.
Yeah, there's some evidence going back even 2004. I mean, there was some sort of a hardened shoreline along there. I can't, you can't tell from the aerials, but it seems as though it was rebuilt more substantially after 2013. But, I agree with John, and it does appear as though, the property to the south, it is potentially experiencing some scouring because of those additional bulkheads to the north. We know that, this committee would not be in favor of bulkheading the property to the south, but because they are experiencing erosion, I think there's a real impetus for them to, work cooperatively to protect their property as well.
Exactly.
And they would probably at some point need permits depending on the type of activity they propose. But the more natural shoreline restoration we can get, the better. So it's just a suggestion for a proactive approach.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of, I guess, something that we'll have to work out is if the neighbor signs on to do work, can that be part of our application, or is that their own application? I don't know.
Probably, I think Fred might be best to comment, but at least in my experience, with DEC and other villages, it's really best to link it to an individual property. It can certainly be a cooperative project, but I think we would permit it to both properties, and then there would be an agreement between the property owners, where it crosses the property. But Fred may want to comment further.
No, I agree with that, Chick. I mean, if there's going to be work on both properties, obviously, we need jurisdiction, right? So I would agree with you.
But it could be some form of application that, recognizes the joint nature. But
Yeah, you could do one application, absolutely.
Yep.
The 2006 aerial photo that does show a bulkhead of some type in the same location. And it also shows that the neighbor's property actually extends farther seaward than the bulkhead. Yep. So there's significant erosion over the last 15 years. Actually, not only of that property, but of all the properties to the south of where properties are bulkheaded. Those have all receded significantly.
Yeah, so that's just the story of the bulkhead intervention.
Right. Haley, you have a tough job and one you probably didn't expect. I think that, somehow you have to summarize this and sort of play this out for both your client and hopefully for the neighbor, because it's a dynamic situation and it's not something just putting this 24-foot extension is going to be a reasonable and happy solution down the road.
Do you think there would be any benefit to bifurcating this application so that we can get approval to repair the bulkhead, the existing bulkhead, and then, you know, come back with
Right,
a new plan
whatever.
for the extension? Yeah, I just don't want to lose too much time on the repair while we're working out the solution for the remainder.
To my mind, that seems reasonable. Will, Lily, Herb, what do you think? John?
Can I ask, was there a bulkhead there originally? I mean, I do see some, when I went down and saw it, there were stakes or old wooden pilings, it looked like, or something to that effect. Maybe not pilings.
Well, we just established that it looked like it was there in 2013. And it was there before the present owner bought the property, I believe.
But what
But
about
it's not hard.
riprap?
Well, what are you suggesting, that we don't allow them to repair this bulkhead and we want them to take it out and to substitute riprap?
No, I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay.
I didn't
So-
understand what the problem with the existing bulkhead is.
Neither did I. Just
Same
checking.
here, because that's not part of the application at this time. The application is just for the 24-foot extension, the way I'm reading it. It does
Really?
not
The
include-
existing bulkhead is competent and is not, it looks fairly substantial. Is it compromised in some way?
Yeah, I mean, the project narrative that we submitted, it is in need of repair to the existing bulkhead. I'm not exactly, I don't have any photos of that, like of what is needed there, but my understanding was that the bulkhead did need fairly urgent attention.
Well, it's kind of surprising here because we think we only have an application for a 24-foot extension. Did you write the application?
Yes.
Chick, when you saw this application, did you understand it to be repair of the existing bulkhead plus a 24-foot extension?
I
Because-
am looking, I'm looking at the plans and at this time, again, it's all moving quickly and we're juggling files, but I do not see anything that makes reference to rebuilding. It just says existing bulkhead. And then the proposed part is the 24-foot extension. So I don't see anything in the application that suggests that the existing bulkhead is being rebuilt. That's the plan. I'm gonna double check the narrative while we're talking.
I guess I do, when I went and visited it, maybe would riprap, and I saw the area that's being eroded, would riprap be the solution as opposed to starting another bulkhead, as we've just discussed, into repair at least, or planned. Maybe you planned.
Lily, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about the existing bulkhead and removing that and replacing
No,
it? with riprap?
leaving the existing bulkhead, but you saw that one area that's eroding.
Well, that's right, but I think that's where we're asking the client, the applicant, to go back and consider a natural shoreline.
Correct, which I
As
agree
Chick
with.
said- Yeah, as
Yes.
Chick said, the first little mini step down from a bulkhead is riprap. So
Right.
I'm kind of hoping they might jump over that and come up with some.
Right. But
Um,
Marianne,
even-
we're also saying though, Marianne, we're also saying now though, I think we need more detail on what their proposal is to repair the existing bulkhead. What materials they're going to use, how much of it is going to be involved and so forth.
Well, Chick is going through the application, correct? Are you looking at that now?
I am looking at it now, yes, and everything I see is just 24-foot extension to existing bulkhead return. That is the only application that's before this board at this time, based on the wetlands permit application. And the plans are consistent with that. Let me just read one thing here. There is a narrative description and it's the same. Help eliminate erosion, all the things that Haley identified, but I do not see anything about rebuilding the existing bulkhead.
Does it not start with applicant is proposing to repair the existing bulkhead and construct a 24-foot extension?
What document are you
Is-
looking at, Haley?
I'm looking at the project description that I printed out at my office, but maybe this is not in line with what was submitted. So that's something we just need to revisit. My understanding was that there was repair required to the existing bulkhead, but if you need more color on that, and if we need to clarify that, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the application signed by Mr. Schwartz on January 13th, 2021. It has a narrative, it has a short description and a long description.
Okay.
And I don't see what you just referred to. So I'd be curious what document that is.
Okay.
I would also note that we noticed the 24-foot extension. We did not notice anything with regard to a repair, you know, based on your analysis, Chick, also. So we should be aware of that issue also, that what's in the notice.
That
Well, it
may
would
be
be
my
based on
mistake.
the
We'll
application,
take a
I
look at
assume.
that before we come back.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we all agree that we're not going to come up with a solution tonight and that we need to adjourn this application until November. Agree? Do we all
Yes.
agree on that? Yes. May I get a motion to adjourn this application at 188 Redwood until the November 5th meeting?
Fourth,
November 4th.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry, who made the motion?
I thought Lily.
Oh, I didn't hear. Okay.
Thank you all for your feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Haley.
Okay, so that's 188 Redwood. So we've now moved on to 10 Yale Road. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I so move.
Okay, second, please.
Second?
Thank you. Is all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there somebody who can speak for this application?
Yes, Melissa Dedovich, Peconic Environmental Associates.
Okay,
Hi, I'm joined by Brian. Actually, Brian DeSessa was supposed to join us tonight, and unfortunately, he was unable to make it. But never fear, we can still do this. I'm joined with Elizabeth Sammartino from Blaze McCoy Architects, Stephen Naroda from Aris Landscape Design, and the property owner, Dan Marsili. And Liz is going to be kind enough, if Doris, if you could share your screen with her, she has all the presentation materials ready.
Okay, I will do that. Give me 1 minute,
Thank
please.
you.
Hi, Liz. You're ready.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the subject property is a 19,301 square foot developed property. It's pretty much fully cleared with waterfront to both the south and west, Upper Sag Harbor Cove. This is a picture of the front of the house. If we could go to the next shot. The house, two-story house with attached garage, was built in the 70s. There we go. And there's our damaged roof that we have to go get fixed. That's why we're rushing to get in here so we can do this work. Right now we have the two-story house with attached decks. We also have an in-ground vinyl swimming pool that was built in 1980, so it's over 40 years old, with the surrounding brick patio and a retaining wall. It's chlorinated and it's also sitting in groundwater right now. So it's one of the issues we want to address as part of this application. We also have the existing detached shed, and there's an LP gas tank as well. There's a slate patio, if you can go to the next picture. There's a slate patio, you can see the with the table on it, right on the left-hand side. That's and as well as a 1,981 square foot asphalt driveway and parking area. There's a substandard septic system right now between the house and Yale Drive. And the house itself, just said there's a clarification on the notice, it was incorrect. The house and where the proposed work is going to be done with regard to the house is located in a FEMA X zone. So my clients purchased the property for their family. It's their full-time residence in 2016. They have 2 young children. They needed some more rooms. So originally we thought we were going to demolish the house and build a new house. But as they lived in there, they realized it was a pretty solid house. So they'd rather retain it and renovate it and rather demolish and build a new house. So they hired me and the team in 2018 with the thought to come up with a plan that was sensitive to Sag Harbor Cove. The team met with Tom Priato to review our requirements and our zoning and the environmental concern for the property. And we spent the last 3 years getting our DEC tidal wetlands permit, our health department board of review, because where it's located, it needed board of review, needed about 5 variances from the health department, which we obtained. And we also, in the time that we've been waiting to be heard by your board, we were able to get village ARB approval. So harbor committees are our last hoop to jump through. And as I go through this, it's a rather simple project. If we can go to the site plan. No, the hammer. So with any project that's involving the water, our first thing we want to do is maximize the setback for the septic system. So you can see here that, I don't know if you can see the original septic system, but we want to maximize to the greatest extent possible, which ended up being, unfortunately, under the parking and driveway. So you can see that there. It's an IA system. The leaching galleys are 101.8 feet from the wetlands, whereas the existing septic system is 85 feet from the wetlands. The watertight treatment tank is located at 84.4 feet, but again, it's watertight. And so that does not have any leaching capability. So we do meet with the requirements for the village for septic. We're also proposing a new detached garage. It's 349 square feet and a generator and outdoor shower, all of which are 75 feet from the wetlands. We did, with Brian's assistance, we were able to get a ZBA variance for the garage because with trying to use the existing footprint, there was part of it was garage space, so we needed to have a new garage to make up for that space. If we could go to the next. So I'm going to start with the house and the first floor to show you how we did this. The existing house has a footprint, the house itself is 2,061 square feet with a deck being 635 square feet. And what we did, if you can see over to the right, is we knocked down the walls. We're going to make it more of an open floor plan. We took the old porch, covered porch in the front, and we shifted it further north and decreased it to 559 square feet. And then we kind of filled in that area there. So there is a minor net footprint expansion, but on the street and landward side of the house of 65 square feet, right in that corner over there. And so the final tally for the footprint is the house is 2,202 feet and the deck has been decreased to 559 square feet. Then on the second floor, we're going to remodel and we're doing new roof lines so we can make up for some more headspace up there. We're also, if you can see on this picture here, removing those 2 sets of stairs to the south. We've made the entrances more from the front and from in between the garage and the house. Okay, next if we can go to the existing landscape conditions. And I'm going to have Steve here from Aris Design go over this portion of the project. Steve?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This is Steve Naroda with Aris Design. Thank you for the opportunity. So basically, Melissa kind of covered it, but the existing conditions, we have predominantly lawn area that exists within the 50-foot buffer area. As you can see in that aerial image you were just looking at, it amounts to about 90.5% cleared within the 50-foot buffer. With what we're proposing, we're reducing it over 50%, reducing the clearing and down to 36.9%. And adding in a robust native planted buffer that will complement both the surrounding, the setting, and also the lifestyle of the homeowners. The pool area right now, as Melissa had touched upon, right, it's fairly large. It's a vinyl pool. It's sitting within groundwater. It does not have a dedicated dry well for backwash. And it's a little lower than the finished floor of the house. So we saw this as an opportunity to introduce a pool that would be environmentally sensitive. So we introduced it's it's a saltwater pool, gunite pool, and we're retreating from the wetland approximately 5 feet with the new pool, and we are going to have a dedicated dry well for pool backwash. There are some significant native red oak trees that surround the south and the east sides of the property that we are preserving, and I think that covers it. I think it's really pretty straightforward. We saw this as an opportunity to really increase the buffer, introduce a buffer and introduce something that really belongs here in the setting. We also have I don't know if you want to show proposed here. It might be easier for the board to see. Thank you, Liz. So on this diagram, you can see the red dashed line on the west side of the house. You can see that is the existing pool area. And then you have the pool patio extends to the west of that, is a little larger. You can see the new pool retreats from the wetland, and it raises up. We match the pool terrace or the pool coping with the house deck. So in doing that, we're able to get above groundwater. I think, yeah, Liz is trying to get to the section we created. So you see that red dashed line, that's where the current pool sits. And again, it's a vinyl pool. It's been there a very long time. I think since the 1980s. Suspect that it could be leaking. It's chlorinated. So the proposed pool is now being lifted to a higher elevation and will be totally out of groundwater. So no dewatering will be required for the new pool.
Actually, no dewatering will be required for the project in general.
Right. And then just graphically on this site plan, you can really see the amount of buffer we're introducing. It surrounds the whole west side and south side of the property. The buffer will equivalent to almost 7,000 square feet of native vegetation that will be planted on the property. Anywhere we're showing upland areas of lawn, we're calling native fescue lawn. That'll be a native fescue seed mixture, further reducing any need for chemical and fertilizer inputs. And that really covers it. I'm here for any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that touches upon the main elements we wanted to bring about. Oh, just one other thing. I was listening on the first case tonight and talking about dry wells, and we do have all roof leaders are being piped to new on-site dry wells. So everything's being stored and treated on the site.
The one thing I'd like to add too is we're actually having a net reduction of the impervious coverage within the 75-foot village wetland setback of 879 square feet. So that reflects the retreat we're doing, as well as the formal drainage plan, which Steve just hit on. And we've filed a construction plan and methodology. We'll be using project limiting fence around the proposed area of disturbance. Just to note that everything that's being done is within the existing limits of clearing. We're not extending any further towards the wetland. And in summary, I just would like to reiterate that we've received all our approvals to date. We have full support of the neighbors who provide letters for both the ZBA and ARB applications. All work is to be contained within the current site disturbance clearing. The existing legal dock is to remain, no dewatering during construction. And we believe we meet the requirements as outlined within the village code for a wetlands permit. And we're here to answer any questions.
Not exactly, because you're putting a pool within 75 feet of the wetlands.
where a pool currently exists and was legally installed with a DEC permit back in 1980.
In 1980, right.
Mhm.
Chick, do you have some comments on this?
Well, I hear both sides of it. Mary Ann, you certainly mentioned that the village setback is 75 feet. Their plan shows the 50-foot setback, and it basically goes the 50 and the 75. 50 cuts through the existing house, and the 75 cuts through most of the existing house.
Right.
So, it is an existing condition, but we do recognize that it's a sensitive piece of property. Colgate Basin to the west and Upper Sag Harbor Cove to the south.
Would it not be feasible to put the pool where the garage is going? That's a 75-foot setback.
Yeah,
No,
that
because you
certainly
have to
does
keep-
meet it. The garage is 81.2 feet that's being proposed. So that would be an alternate location.
You would need, sorry, Chick, you need a 25-foot setback from the sanitary
From the
system.
sanitary system, it
We
doesn't.
would, we would be really constrained.
Well, constrained, maybe not impossible.
Well, the thing with the swimming pool that I would like to point out is that everything we're removing over there with the existing patio, we're not having a lawn area that it's all being given over to the proposed buffer. So that's where the maximum buffer is over there. That's where the heaviest with our heaviest planting is being done. The pool is going to be a saltwater pool lifted out of groundwater. So environmentally, it's a big improvement from what's currently there.
Melissa, there's no decking or other seating area on the water side of the pool?
No, there
either
isn't. No,
side?
it's going to be, nope, that is correct. Good observation. That's all being removed. There's a retaining wall around that existing brick patio that's all being pulled out and everything. That's all going to be given over to the buffer. The only seating is between the pool and the house. And it's being raised, so then you can just go right in.
I'm sorry.
The decking is just.
And you
the
can go
decking
right
is-
in.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's being raised and you can go right in what? Into the pool or into the house?
Into the house. We're trying to lift everything up so it's more environmentally. And then we also have drainage underneath. If you see, there's some drainage units underneath the decking there.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out what that is. Drainage from where?
That's part of the roof drainage system.
Mhm.
So are they dry wells? What are they?
Yeah, well, they're minimized dry wells, like Coltech systems. They're meant for areas of high groundwater, so you can make clear the groundwater, but also have the ability to store the amount of stormwater that you need to. You don't have room for a conventional dry well in that area.
Mhm.
Chick, you're familiar with that, I assume.
Absolutely. Yes. No, I did make note of that. So, I mean, really the question here, at least the way I would frame it, you have an existing pool and an existing developed property that doesn't meet any setbacks currently. Cases that we've been extremely critical of have mostly involved new pools, and we have seen applications that improve environmental conditions, where existing pools exist and have been permitted. I think there's one on Long Point Road that comes to mind.
Right.
So I would say that, the committee should be aware of the applicant's presentation. They have a narrative that's updated June 26, 2021. And it goes through pretty much all the things that the applicant's team discussed. I would suggest that it would be helpful to show the setbacks that exist currently and what are proposed. It's kind of broken into two tables and it's a little tough to really see the benefit.
I agree.
Chick, it's funny you said my first narrative had that and I was told to split it.
Yeah, I think it's better.
I had
like
it that way and I
side
was
by
told to
side.
split it.
But, the benefits just at a high level, you're creating a tremendous amount of buffer where buffer does not exist. You are setting the pool back farther than what currently exists. You're getting an IA system. The house is remaining the same, but it's being provided with extensive drainage for all roof runoff. That's all quantified with expanded setbacks and increased natural vegetation. You're not going to get this site to comply because, as I said before, the 50-foot cuts through the existing house, and the 75-foot, is even more within the existing house. So the fact that the pool is there, I guess it could remain. Herb's comment about where is the new decking, if you look at the aerial photographs, the existing decking goes beyond the existing pool and closer to the wetlands.
Right.
So there's a pretty tremendous net setback increase there, with respect to those deck areas.
Chick, excuse me, but when they
pointing out the
said
differences and some of the considerations that I see. Go ahead.
Chick, sorry, but when they talked about the 5-foot increase in the setback, that was just the pool edge itself. That doesn't include the decking around it, right?
That's the way I'm reading the plan.
Right, it's just the pool, correct. It's just the pool itself, not the decking. The decking is all that's being.
It's eliminated.
Yeah,
Well, that goes back to the number I was saying, the decrease in pervious coverage within 50 feet or 75 feet, I should say.
What's that percentage? What's that percentage reduction? Is that something you can provide?
No, I just provided the number. The existing coverage within 75 feet is 4,431. What we're proposing with our reductions and pullback is going to be 3,552. So that's a net reduction of 879 square feet. Yeah.
879.
It's a big reduction.
Can you tell us what the decking material is? Is that pervious or is that impervious?
I believe it's pervious, correct, Stephen? I think it's pool terrace. Or Liz, are you familiar?
Yeah, it would just be pervious Ipe decking.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why we're able to put the drainage underneath it.
Well, not exactly, but.
Right, not exactly. Okay. Chick, are you familiar with the kind of pervious decking that they're talking about? I'm curious about that.
I think when Melissa said Ipe, I think that's just a wood material.
It's just wood. It's wood decking. It's just wood
So
decking.
It's not stone and mortar.
It's probably on sonotube.
It's not concrete or solid stone. That's
so there's usually some spacing so the wood doesn't rot, and it allows some penetration of stormwater through it.
Right. Just to chime in, it's not set on a slab or a concrete slab. This will be pervious material below the deck.
Yeah.
So the deck is floating above that pervious material.
So it's a basic wood deck.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm familiar with that.
And it's Ipe wood, so it's tropical hardwood.
Right.
What's the depth of the deck from the door to the pool area?
It's 14 feet from the door to the inside coping of the pool, of the proposed pool.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Right.
And like you said, except for the self-contained portion of the septic system, the actual leaching fields, although that's probably not the correct term, those aspects of the new septic system are a minimum of 100 feet from the wetlands. Is that right?
Actually, the term you used the correct term. The leaching field is beyond 100 feet. Yes.
Right. And that's the minimum for the village wetlands.
That was our number one concern from day one when the clients came to me, because like I said, originally we were thinking about a new house, but then we really liked the old house and it's got good bones. It just needs to be renovated and updated. And they need a little more space. So that was the first thing. And I'll tell you, we spent almost 2 years with the health department, if not 2.5, because we had to go back and forth. The IA system, this was before we had to, so we wanted to do an IA system to present to the board. And we ended up having to go to board review and receive at least 5 variances from them to do this.
Yeah. Melissa, are there any other variances that you're requesting, for example, with respect to lot coverage or anything like that?
I don't believe so. not from zoning, no. We went to ZBA for the garage. I can double check that. I have no problem with that.
And where does
Can you
the,
tell us a little bit about what you went through with the health department for your IA system? What were the things?
I wish I had Katie Maresca from Maresca Engineering from Steve Maresca's office. It was about the fact of, first of all, they're not thrilled about, I saw before you were talking about putting a septic system under a driveway.
Yeah.
They're not thrilled about that. We had to, in order to meet the distance to groundwater, we had to make sure it had enough space. So we had to use the leaching galleys, which are a little tricky. We had to get permission to not have to put expansion galleys in. Normally you're required to put 50% expansion in. We don't have the room for it. There was the question of the one galley is too close. Actually, one of the galleys is too close to the garage, and then one of the galleys is too close to the house. So, but the board actually approved it via an executive, because we were also going through COVID. So it takes 6 to 8 months in normal times, and Chick knows this, to get in front of the board of review. And luckily, Ed Lyons took a look at it and said, you know what, you have no other place to put this, and was able to get board members to sign off on it.
Thank you.
And I will just point out, I think Herb asked this before, but it looks like the expansion galley, the southwesterly one, is just within the 100 feet, but the actual constructed or used leaching galleys are all more than 100 feet. And I didn't mention before, but there is an impervious driveway currently, correct, Melissa?
Correct. There's 1,981 or 18 square feet of pavement that we're pulling out.
And that's going to be it's a proposed permeable driveway.
Correct.
I can't read this diagram so well. Can you tell me where the runoff from the roof goes?
Sure. Liz, can you zoom in? Yeah, on the southeast corner. There's a south. Yeah, there you go. There, do you see is that dashed line, Mary Ann? Is that dashed line comes off the house?
Yeah.
That's one spot. So we work with Blaze McCoy's office in locating where these roof leaders are, and then we make sure we run them to drywall. So then if you go to the west, yeah, there's the next one.
So where is it from the garage? I was thinking about the new garage. Is there
going up to the north
plan
there?
for the garage? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a separate one.
There is a full drainage plan. We didn't have it up for the presentation, but there is a full drainage plan.
There they are.
And it's right in the back, and it was done by Steve. I believe Steve Maresca's office did the septic as well as the drainage.
No, we did the drainage, Melissa.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
They're 10 by 3.
Yes,
Okay.
10 by 3. Yeah. They're shallow because of the groundwater concerns. So that's why we added a second one, just for overflow.
And we do have a dedicated pool dry well too, even though it is going to be a saltwater pool too. So
the garage looks enormous. Is it as enormous as?
No, that's a single car garage, and it's very tight.
Oh, it looks almost as big as the 20 by 40 swimming pool, but.
No, that pool actually is
14 feet wide.
One lap.
Oh.
But
okay.
the garage, yeah.
Okay, I see.
I would like to make a comment, 2 comments. One, I think when you're renovating a house rather than tearing it down, that's a good gesture. I appreciate that work. It maybe costs more than scraping and starting new. I think that's commendable, just as an observation, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What is the why did the ARB see this before us, or clarify that for me?
Just that everything was taking was taking a while to get in front of your committee, that we wanted to make sure that we didn't just to save some time to do it simultaneously. And the ARB loved it, and they put us to public hearing, and it was unanimous. And they're like, good like a harbor committee. And Liz Vale goes, the only thing is if they make you change something, you'd have to come back. And we were willing to take that chance, but they loved it.
Okay, any other comments? I think there's a lot of good here.
Thank you. Actually, thanks to our clients, because they really put a lot of effort into this, and it's wonderful to work with the project sponsor like that.
Yep.
Herb, John, Parker, I haven't heard anything from you on this.
No, I've been watching it. I've been looking at it, and I think that again, we're upgrading to an IA system, which to me is the biggest advantage, and we're getting additional buffer. I mean, again, this is all existing, and what they're proposing is much better than what we have now.
I think the thing that sells me is that we're kind of swapping pools. It's not a new pool, as Chick pointed out. So.
Well, it is a new pool, but it's moved farther back and has less
Right.
deck.
And further out of the earth.
Yes.
Right.
Right. I think that's important as well.
In many ways, it's sort of in the same position virtually, but it not. All right. So are there any other questions? Are we ready to consider closing the public hearing on this?
Is there anybody else from the public, Mary Ann?
Right. Thank you. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this application?
I'm looking on the list if there's any. No raised. Nope. No
Okay.
raised hands.
So
my end.
may I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Just really quickly, because I don't know if it's appropriate to ask later, but if I could just ask Melissa to do that side-by-side table.
Oh, sure.
If this is moving forward to a decision, it would be very helpful to use that comparison.
I'll pull out my original narrative.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
All right, that's great. So where were we? Have we closed the public hearing?
No. You made a motion to close the public hearing. We need a motion and a second.
Okay. A motion, please.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, and a second, please.
I'll second.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think what we want to do here is ask Chick to draw up a decision here approving this plan. Chick, do you have any conditions here other than the thing that you would like to see, that side-by-side comparison chart?
Yeah, that's really just helpful for the preparation of the decision. No, I think the plans speak well for themselves. It's pretty apparent what we're talking about here. The committee has discussed it. There's advantages that I will structure into the permit. And there may be some standard conditions, but I don't see anything unusual or different here.
Okay. I think when you write the decision, you need to really emphasize why we're, taking this position on construction and a residence that are not in alignment with Harbor Committee rules.
Totally
Right.
agree. I'm very, very much aware of precedent and looking at this as its own unique case that stands on its merits. And I'll
Right.
definitely incorporate that into the decision as to why we feel this is consistent with Chapter 285.
Okay.
And Chick, I'll get you that chart by the end of tomorrow.
Can I make a motion can I ask for a motion to ask Chick to write up a decision approving this application?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Yeah, for the record, the next meeting is November 4th.
Thank you, Doris.
Thank you, Melissa. Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Take care,
Liz. Thank
Melissa.
you.
Good night. So the next item on the agenda, we have 3 more applications. The next one up is 40 Redwood Road. May I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
Who made that motion?
Thank you.
Marion, who made the motion? I
didn't hear it.
I didn't hear either. So.
Can somebody make a motion to open the public hearing on?
I'll
40?
open. I'll open.
Thank you, Herb. Can somebody second, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there somebody here to speak to this application?
Hi, good evening. This is Andrew Baird from First Coastal, filling in for Bill Mack, who usually attends
Oh,
these lovely meetings.
Yeah.
Hi, Andrew.
Kai, nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too.
This is a maintenance repair of an existing bulkhead at Redwood anchorage, which you're probably familiar with. They did the majority of the bulkhead a couple of years ago, and now they're going to finish it off in place with synthetic sheathing and no treated wood. It's a pretty straightforward bulkhead project.
One question, I went there with one of my colleagues. It looks like kind of a mixed use property. Is this a commercial property or is it a residence?
That's an interesting question. I believe Mr. Schwenk does live on the property, but it's zoned waterfront commercial marina.
Okay. Yeah, when we were there, we saw that a big part of this property is just a gravel driveway serving the marina.
Yes, the majority of the property is, yeah, there's a little house up front near the road. And the majority of the property is active marina with lots of parking.
Right.
Chick,
Chick, do you have any considerations or issues with this? I mean, how come we don't have a buffer here? We have like, it looks like a golf course.
That did occur to me, and I think that's really a function, and Andrew can speak to this as well, but I think it's a function of the existing marina, and that, you know, we're kind of looking at it more as a commercial piece as opposed to a residential piece. They're not proposing any new structures, and they are just looking to maintain and ensure that the bulkhead does not go into a failing condition, which would actually impact the intertidal marsh that's to the north. And I do note that there's some pretty extensive notes on the plan about how the construction will occur so that the intertidal marsh is not damaged. I did think the same thing, Marianne, and
Yeah.
I don't really have more explanation.
The board approved, the
the
board
applicant
issued a
wants to add.
permit.
So
Go ahead.
in chapter 285, does it distinguish between commercial and residential properties?
I was just starting to look that up. I had 285 up, and if someone's
think it
quicker,
does.
Fred, are you aware?
Yeah, I don't think it does, to be honest.
I don't think so either.
I'll take a look through, but you know, obviously a waterfront zoning district as opposed to R20, which is mostly what we look at, you know, and how a marina property, you know, boat storage, et cetera, is utilized. It is kind of a different situation.
But there's a lot of just lawn there and a lot of gravel driveway.
Okay.
And then over across the property line is where the actual boats are stored, is my understanding as I look at the map. So it's not a marina itself, although there's access to the marina. There's gangplanks and stuff that go from the gravel driveway. That's a big part. Can somebody put the diagram up on the screen?
Andrew, I made you co-host, and Chick Voorhees, if you'd like to share the screen.
Yeah, I'm not able to do that. I don't know if Andrew can or Doris,
I
if you can.
unfortunately got separated from my connection to my work computer. I was hoping you guys had access to your version of those plans.
John, you're pretty tech savvy. Can you like put up this diagram on
No, I don't
with
have
the
the-
shared screen?
I don't have the diagram.
The board the board issued a permit for this very same project 3 or 4 years ago to repair about 3/4 of the bulkhead. And I can't off the top of my head think of a marina with a significant buffer zone.
I
because
haven't
of the
seen a
nature.
marina that's got like a huge piece. It's like 100 feet of grass, and it looks highly fertilized, highly irrigated, right up to the edge of the water.
I'm
Will,
trying to pull the image,
Okay.
Marianne, just letting you know, but I can't
Thank you.
open my email.
So I kind of am hearing that it would be good to incorporate a buffer here. And there is a setback between the bulkhead and the gravel parking area along the stretch to the south of this project. There's also a disturbance area because it talks about the limit of grading next to the bulkhead that's being replaced. So, I think we'd be pretty flexible on the vegetation types as long as it's native, but would it be possible to add some buffer between the gravel parking area and the bulkhead?
It would be possible. It would result in a net loss of parking. I guess the question is, how much are we talking about?
well, I'm also thinking, doesn't the bulkhead run along the seaward side of that grass area? Doesn't that end in bulk? I mean, we need this picture, but in my mind,
The
it's like a long
seaward.
expanse of green grass that I think ends in bulkhead and then off to the side of it. And I'm not sure which direction that is. I'm just thinking right towards where the boats are. There's the gravel driveway. I think that the whole end of this property is bulkheaded. Is that not true?
That is correct.
That is correct.
So
There's kind of an area between the parking. Well, it's not really that. The area I'm thinking of isn't subject of this application. So never mind.
Doris, are you meeting with any success to get this?
I'm still looking. I have the completeness review report, but that doesn't have the image that you.
Doris, I can email you the plan.
Okay, that would be great. There's no image plan attached to this, so you can email that over. That would be fabulous.
Just give me a second.
Thank you.
And also for those that have access, the aerial photograph is pretty informative here as well.
John, can you show us that?
I might be able to. Let's see. Zooming it. Can you see it?
Turn your screen down and then we might be able to. Now we're only seeing the top. That's better. So what are we looking at there, John? Oh, I see. So we've got like the green area going north towards the top of the screen, and that ends in a bulkhead up there, correct?
Assuming this is the right property.
Correct.
There you go.
Right. So we have like the obvious gravel, but then just to the left of that, that's all green grass all the way down to the bulkhead, I believe.
It leads down to a boat ramp to the west of the bulkhead. And then very soon, within a few feet of the boat ramp, you're on the neighboring property.
Okay. And what were you saying? There's something that exists. John, is it possible for you to zoom in on this and we can just look at the bulkhead area?
You want the bulkhead at the end? This is that where we're looking?
That's a good view. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're looking at replacing the area, looking at the right-hand portion where there's a pair of little piers that come out around to the north-facing, north is up, north-facing portion of the bulkhead. And there's a small return, a short return that comes back next to the launching ramp.
It's about, looks like 35 feet.
So the area
Or
that
We
goes
should have the
horizontally.
plans coming.
Say what?
Doris should have the plans on the server.
It's about 100 feet of facing north. Looking
bulkhead.
north. Yeah, we're looking north there. And that's the piece of bulkhead we're talking about. Yeah.
And what is that? Is that a dock? I was just there today.
That's
but
a long ramp and a floating dock,
Okay.
which is
you're
primarily
saying-
used for the boat ramp that's just to the left of what we can see.
And you
To the
were
left.
suggesting that between the gravel and,
Hey, there we go. Look at that.
okay, yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Chick.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Teamwork here.
Oh, so we're talking about 166 feet altogether of bulkhead.
So, my memory is that the grass area goes all the way down to the water, but that's not what this is showing. It's showing that the gravel expands towards the top of this lot. Is that accurate? Is that what you remember?
That's accurate to my memory because it kind of has to be so that people can use the boat ramp.
And is this little, oh, I see the little tiny, right, there's the boat ramp.
The area to the west of the gravel is basically grass.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I see that in the
And
aerial photograph.
it is used for boat storage, boats
I was
on
just gonna say
trailers. Boats on trailers are, of course, a marina with boat storage needs place to store them. So that's kind of a boat storage area.
Well, I know that, Marina. They also, and I'm sure you do too, they also, far to the right of this diagram, there's a lot of places where boats are stored over the winter.
Yes, up near the road on to the right. You're correct.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, can somebody tell me why we shouldn't be asking there to be buffer? I mean, this is, I'm sure there's a lot of runoff here.
Crickets.
Crickets, exactly, crickets.
Well,
Yes, you are correct.
can't you swale? You can swale the land to dry wells of some sort. Dry wells have got to be. I mean, that's an interesting point. You don't want, particularly if there's boat paint or anything washing straight off into the water. But if it was draining landward to some type of a dry well, that would make sense. I think you have to consider that this is not a residence. This is a commercial marine facility, which is critical to our livelihood in this little village. So I would think some kind of internal, swales going towards a internal drain would help mitigate that issue.
I'm going to ask you, Chick. I'm going to ask you a question if I can. This right to the west of this is Cove Road Park,
Yes.
and you're currently working on a project for that park using
Yes.
Southampton CPF water quality funds. And if I recall correctly, I'm not even sure that it's so long ago that I've looked at it. I'm not sure I recall exact details, but whether it was rain gardens or whatnot, but you are working on a stormwater project for that, and thus may
That's
know
correct.
what would fit in next door to it, to the project that you're working on adjacent to it.
Yeah, I mean, we're just working within the village right of way at the road end there. And, the grant only contemplates the village property. So, it is informative that there is something that's going to take place that's going to control the runoff from Cove Road that, goes uncontrolled into the waterway. And having some sort of maybe a similar solution, or as Will was suggesting, pitching to a dry well or potentially a rain garden. Again, depending on how much we're able to push this. I mean, I don't know if I want to go with the full regrading of the gravel parking area, and there's really not enough information to know the elevations and where water's flowing, at least based on the materials that I have, it looks pretty flat to me in the field. So, I'm not sure where all that's going, but I would think a more major project would involve diverting stormwater to some type of either bioswale treatment or subsurface recharge, would be a big project in the gravel parking area that exists now.
And I'm sure, I don't know, Chick, how would you decide? Some, not all gravel parking lots are pervious, right? Because they can have those tar bases.
Yeah, I mean, this one,
This could essentially be like one big, like asphalt road going right into the water.
I can speak to that a little bit. This is indeed a pervious gravel parking area, no oil. And almost the entire lot is pervious. The grass is a pervious area. The gravel parking area, which is enormous, is a pervious area. The only impervious structures are a small house, a little outbuilding, and that's it. So it is quite a well-drained property.
But the grass is incredibly
Green.
green. There is not a dandelion. There hasn't been a dandelion, even a thought of a dandelion there for years. So there's certainly been, some pesticides, some fertilizers, some pretty, I imagine it's irrigated. I mean, it's perfect grass.
It is irrigated.
So, huh?
It is irrigated.
Yeah, so whatever is being put on that grass is flowing right into the cove or bay or whatever we have here. And I don't know, I feel like I'm being a bit of a pain, but I feel like we need to acknowledge that. And while we have this moment, figure out some way that we can try to, counteract that.
And the problem basically with any place with a launching ramp is that the water runs from the parking lot down the launching ramp. I mean, it's the same thing in the, in the village at Bay Street. And I'm not sure exactly how you counteract that, but.
Well, just like we did at Havens Beach, you put in a French drain and you move that water over to like a rain garden or a dry well. So you don't let it just go pell-mell straight into the cove. It could be very attractive.
sounds like those are some suggestions for Andrew to bring back to his client.
I
They
would
are,
certainly.
as I said before, they're disturbing in back of the replacement bulkhead. And it looks like there is a grass strip between the length of the gravel parking area and the marina area. I'm sure boat owners need to be able to get to their boats there. But, even a slightly depressed swale or something that would just ensure that we don't have runoff going from the parking area and the lawn if it travels across the parking area directly into the waterway would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd certainly be happy to bring that up with the applicant.
I can imagine the reaction you're going to get. But please let them know that we're serious about protecting our waters and, having like nitrogen runoff and any contaminants that might be coming from boats and motors and cars. That's what the Harbor Committee is here for. That's what we're supposed to, put a stake in the ground and say, no, we have to handle this a different way. So I look forward to hearing what kind of response you might get from your client.
Just to clarify one point, Marianne, maybe Andrew can also affirm this, but I live nearby. As far as I can tell, the only person occupying the house there is the caretaker for the marina. It's not as if there's like a house is rented out, in a way that is separate from the use of the marina. Is that true,
Right,
Andrew?
that's correct.
Well, I don't know that changes much of anything.
It may not. It may not.
Yeah. I mean, we're not asking him to put an IA system in.
Yeah, this is pretty simple stuff, really.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And
And they're already disturbing a lot of the area anyway.
Right. All right, so should we agree that we're gonna adjourn this application until November 5th?
I was muted. I have a question. Does the
November
existing
4th.
house have a cesspool?
I'm not familiar with the sanitation system of the existing house.
Because I know the person to the east at Shippershore is looking into putting an IA system in because they have a cesspool that is so bad that he knows he can't pump it because if he pumps it, it will shut it down or something. So they're starting the engineering for that. I suspect there's a cesspool here. That might be something that you get brownie points for if you discuss that with your client.
It's the right thing to do. Sounds corny, but okay. So all lots to think about and discuss with your client. Should we adjourn until November 5th? Are there more questions, more discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this?
Excuse me, Marianne, just want to let you know it's November 4th. the
Okay,
next
sorry.
meeting. That's okay. Thank you.
November 4th it is.
Thursday.
Is there anybody in the audience, in the public, who would like to speak to this application?
I'm checking the list right now and I don't see any hands raised.
No hands.
No
Okay.
hands.
All right. May I have a motion, please, to adjourn this until November 4th?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
I'll
Will.
second.
Thank you, Lily. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Good night,
care, Andrew.
Andrew.
The next application I see here is 100 Redwood Road. May I have a motion to open a public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Lily. Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Will. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there somebody here to speak to this application to the committee?
Yes, Matt Ivins, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Hi, Matt.
Okay. Hi, guys, how are you? So I'll give you a real quick background on this. Some of you board members were here when this was approved before, but this project was approved on January 11th, 2016 for the construction of a second-story addition on top of the existing two-story dwelling. There was going to be no encroachment to the wetlands whatsoever than what already existed. And it also included for the installation of a new sanitary system up by the street. The existing septic system, as you guys should be able to see on the survey, is pretty close to the wetlands boundary.
Matt, let
Matt?
me interrupt real quick. Are you able
What's
to
that?
are you able to share your screen?
I hope so. Let's try it.
Okay, let me make you co-host. Hold on.
I'm back where I can help with that if
All
needed.
right.
Okay.
You ready, Matt? You
All right,
ready?
all right, bear with me here. Here we go. All right. Tell me if you can see that.
It's coming.
It's coming.
All right.
There
we
you
go.
go.
All right, you got it? Let me zoom in a little bit too, so this makes this easier. Let me just move this here. Why doesn't this let me move it? You know what? Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Okay.
Good job.
All right, so nobody's gonna get vertigo, hopefully. But there's the existing septic, as you guys may remember. It's shown there at 36 feet from the wetland boundary. We came to you guys again about 5-6 years ago with a plan to move it up front, which we did. We ended up getting the permit from your board with the condition of a expansion of the already existing 25-foot wide buffer. The idea that you guys wanted was to simply repeat that, another 25 feet, cut across the rear yard or the backyard. The owners were a little reticent about that because it would end up really reducing the backyard to about 21 feet in width. We then came to you guys January 11th, 2018 as a discussion to talk about the possibility of replacing that 25-foot straight across buffer with a more free-form buffer that would still incorporate the same square footage.
Yes.
it seemed like most of the board was receptive. You guys were receptive enough for us to go forward, resubmit an application to bring back the original wetlands permit from the dead. But then really the only difference would be to provide you guys with a plan for this free-form buffer, which I'll put up here. I had John Borelski did the calculation, so it is exactly the same square footage. So you can see that here. Also different in this application is the fact that instead of the standard sanitary system, we're going to go with the IA system. And John Borelski's, he's manning that. He is down to, he's almost near approval. He just needs approval from your committee, actually, to gain that.
Okay, so you have Suffolk County all on board?
Yep, Suffolk County was applied for months ago. I had the notice of incomplete application I'm looking at, and they do require village wetlands approval.
Okay.
So that's about it. You can see the planting plan before you. I've read Chick's comments, which are somewhere here, but.
And this patio, is that pervious, impervious?
That's impervious.
And are those rhododendrons native rhododendrons?
They're not native, but let me try to put them up. These things are quite established. I mean, they've been there for, I would imagine, they're about 10 to 12 foot tall.
Yeah.
See, let me, does this come up? Can you see those?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
All
So
right.
are those being considered part of your native buffer?
We included it in native buffer, and we included, but we don't have a problem with removing the lily turf, the low line grass plants in front of it. There's a hydrangea in front of that. We discussed Chick's comments about getting rid of the miscanthus, the ornamental grass on the easterly property boundary. He doesn't have a problem with that. And then there's various hydrangea up towards the water that we will remove. We have no problem with that. But the owners would really like to keep these. They provide screening from the neighbor to the west.
Right.
And
they're beautiful.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the amount of square footage that those 3 or 4 massive hydrangeas take up, could you actually think about in the upper left-hand corner of this yard, rather than having it dip out, have it dip around in a more, to compensate for the square footage that's represented by the hydrangeas?
Yeah, I believe.
Rhododendrons?
Yeah, the owner seems he seems amenable to that.
Yeah, keep the rhododendrons, but I think we want to swap out for a little bit more really native plantings.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Okay.
Any other comments here? Have you looked at the planting plan, Chick?
Yes. Yeah, we had those comments. It's always tough. Rhododendron is, well, it's native in some areas of Long Island on the North Shore. It's fairly rare, but it is a native plant to the Northeast. So I'm not too concerned about that. We had talked about the ornamental grasses. So I think, we're trying to work with what exists and not disrupt the site too much. And I would agree that favoring the area toward the water with native plants would be the best strategy. Matt, could you go just through a little bit more detail on what you're proposing in those areas for the proposed wetlands buffer?
Just what the types of plantings, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. The majority is going to be Cape American beach grass, which is these areas here, which you can see in the polka dotted or stipulated. Groupings of beach plum here and here, over here as well. And then we're going to throw in bayberry, this corner here, right up there, and along here. And again, it'll be pushed back, once we get rid of the miscanthus, which was requested by Chick.
So how are you going to make sure that, the lawn does not interfere with the native beach grass planting areas? Is it possible?
I mean, I've seen other, we've done other projects. We did, I think it was LaDuca next door a number of years ago with Dennis Downs, and it was maintained well.
Jack,
I mean, it didn't seem like there was any encroachment whatsoever into the lawn or into the beach grass.
And can you tell me about the swimming pool? Is there a fence for that swimming pool?
There is, it's out right over here, as you can see.
Oh, okay.
And this is also, just to let you know, this is proposed to be relocated to the landward side of the buffer.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask about that. All right. Questions, comments from the committee? Everybody happy?
I think the planting plan out front is, or to the wetlands is great, but I know when you put in that IA system, there are a lot of pre-existing trees up front. Are those all going? What's going to happen to those?
They're gonna have to. I mean, the health department requires you to put a sanitary system on the street side. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing we can really do.
What about under the driveway?
The health department, I mean, you can do it via covenant and a substantial fee, but you got to prove a hardship. You got to prove, in short, I mean, I don't mean to be short, but the health department doesn't seem to care about trees.
Right. What are you going to replace them with? Are you going to put new trees back?
That I'm not sure yet.
You can't put them in the leach field.
And you know, but there'll be some, you know, there'll be maybe foundation plantings at the most. I mean, yeah, well, you're right. I mean, you can't throw a tree in there because the root system will end up compromising the IA system over time.
But like a fescue lawn in front or something like that?
Yeah, he might. I don't think he's 100% sure, to be honest. The owner, that is, sorry.
And do you have a little chart there that shows the square footage of the buffer area compared to what a 50-foot straight across buffer would be?
I have all that information. It's not on the survey, but I can read it into the record if you guys want. So the existing buffer is about 1,730 square feet, about 12.1% of the property. With the addition of the 1,900 square feet additional, the overall buffer becomes 3,630 square feet, which is about 25.4% of the property. That doesn't include the wetlands area. If you include the wetlands area, about 30.3% of the property is sterilized.
Yeah, that's not quite where I was going. I don't think you get to count the wetlands in this calculation, but backing up from the wetlands in like a 50-foot straight across haircut, which is the way sometimes people do the 50-foot buffer, what that square footage would be compared to the amount of square footage minus the wetlands that you're proposing here. And I think it should go on the survey, or it should go somewhere in the written documents.
Yeah, I could have.
I agree.
Okay.
Totally.
And I kind of like the idea of just being a pain here of, you know, how much square footage, because those 3 or 4 rhododendrons take like, I don't know, 20, 30 square feet. If you could like just pump up that buffer a little bit to accommodate them.
Yeah, no, I can do that. That's fine. We'll put that on the survey, and I'll just update my planting plan to show that.
Also, Marianne, on other applications, we've gotten into pretty great detail about fencing. And we did, Matt indicated it would be outside the buffer, but we've even asked, you know, for it to be shown on plans and what type of fence it is.
You're totally right, Chick. What kind of fencing do you have in mind, Matt? Thank you for telling me.
Let me ask real quick, sorry.
I think the idea, Matt, is to just show it on the next version of the plan. There's going to be a couple of, it's going in the right direction, but just have all that information on the plan.
And you might send it, you might include a picture of what the fence looks like.
Okay.
Put that right on the landscape plan if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Herb, John, Lily, Will, y'all good?
I'm good.
Good.
Right. Hillary, you're good?
Yeah, just I think it's a shame to sacrifice all those trees. I know the IA systems are important, and I know that's not really our purview, but it's sad, you know.
I agree with you. It's a swap.
We need the.
We're getting a lot more buffer on the seaward side of the property. Yeah, but just in general, cutting down trees is not something that I don't think anybody really likes.
Transplant them to the water side.
Yeah.
Don't cut them down, dig them up, transplant them.
They're not really great trees. What are they, Hillary? Are they like
I don't know, maybe Lily can speak to that.
some kind of cedar trees or something?
There were dogwoods, two dogwoods, I think native dogwoods, a red maple, a blue spruce.
Right.
They just provided a nice buffer for the house because the house behind, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, yeah, the house wasn't sitting right on the street. Yeah, you might want to think about moving them around,
I
but
mean, those dogwoods are nice. That red maple's lovely. It's not a native, but
okay.
Oh, is it a Japanese maple?
correct.
Oh, those are lovely. All right, so Matt, you have like a little bit of homework here. I think unless, is there somebody who wants to speak from the public that's here? Crickets, more crickets. Will somebody please make a motion to, I think we're ready to close the public hearing, are we not? Is there any reason not to close the public hearing? I think the few items that we have left are not substantial, correct?
That's my view.
Fred, check, what do you think? Okay,
Yeah, I think the applicant has their direction. I'll just quickly summarize. We want the buffer calculations on the plan. We want the 50-foot buffer equivalent. There should be a swap out for the non-natives to expand the buffer. We want the fence shown and the type of fence. And I think that was it, unless anybody would something more.
no, I think that's it. What kind of driveway do we have here? Is it pervious or impervious?
No, it's currently an asphalt drive.
Asphalt.
Huh. And what's the ratio of pervious to impervious on this lot?
The ratio. I mean, in terms of like square footage.
You may have it on that plan, Matt. I see some
Yeah.
calculations.
Hold on, I gotta calculate.
Looks like it's under 20%, which is the DEC requirement.
Yeah.
Well, there would be extra credit for putting in a pervious driveway. But I do think you've done some great work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna adjourn this and see you November 4th. Can I have a motion to?
I'm sorry. Are we adjourning it, or I thought we were going towards closing it?
Chick, are you comfortable just closing this up and wrapping it up?
Yes, that's why I summarized before. I don't see any reason why that couldn't be done. We didn't see these revised plans well prior to the hearing, so.
Okay. All right, so we need to close the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I so move.
Thank you. I think there was a first and a second there. Can I have a roll, not a roll call, but can I have a vote on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. May I have a motion to direct Chick to write up a decision as he just outlined with the various additions that he would like to see Matt come back with on the survey?
I'll make that motion.
All right, second,
Just
please.
quick discussion on that, just that I'd like to have Matt submit that at least 2 weeks prior to the hearing, to the meeting,
Okay,
that I have time to make sure I have all the correct documentation.
Yeah, I'll check. I'll get that to you ASAP.
okay. All right, I think we're at the point of taking a vote. Did we just have a motion?
We had a motion. I need a second. We don't have a second.
I second.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
All
Matt.
in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
Okay. For the
All right.
record, the next meeting is November 4th.
All right, have a good night, you guys, all right?
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Care.
Hey, Matt.
Take care, you too.
Okay, last but not least, we're moving on to 34 Long Point Road.
Correct.
May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there somebody here to speak to this application?
Yes, Mike Shiano from InterScience on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Doris. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight?
Hello. Good.
Good.
Good. And with me, I have Joe Waller and Rasuki Takahashi from Stimson Landscape Architecture, as well as Rick Wisnowski from the Rayner Group.
Great. Would you like to share your screen, Mike?
Please.
Okay, let me.
And if you could also, Joe, are you going to be sharing your screen too at some point?
Yes, I can give an update on the landscape proposal.
Okay.
Okay.
You ready, Michael?
Okay, I'll go first.
And so is Joe.
Thanks, Doris.
When he's ready. You're welcome.
Okay, so 34 Long Point Road is located on the northwestern tip of Long Point Road and is surrounded on 3 sides by wetlands and surface waters. We are proposing to remove an existing septic system that's in kind of a raised wall area and to install a new IA OWTS. And when we are removing the existing raised septic system, we are also going to be removing 279 cubic yards of existing fill. We are also proposing to remove this existing slate walkway, the retaining wall, obviously, around the septic system, this slate wall that is to the west of the septic system, and also to remove the existing driveway and gravel parking area, which we're going to be replaced.
Replaced with what?
With more pervious driveway. We're reconfiguring the way that the driveway is configured, because right now what we have is this area of turf lawn, which is required to be at the end of this road because there's a driveway turnaround that's required for emergency vehicles. So what we are doing is having a circular driveway that goes around a native planted area, which Joe will be able to get into a little bit more. I'm just trying to give a brief summary of what we're proposing, and then we'll get into some of the details. We are also removing existing areas of lawn. Essentially, all lawn on the site is going to be removed, and also as much upland non-native vegetation as we can. We're going to construct a new pervious driveway and new pervious parking areas. We're also going to construct 2 elevated walkways that are going to go through the areas to the north of the house and the garden over here. Those elevated walkways are going to be made of untreated wood and designed to have light penetrating decking on them so that plants can grow underneath them. There's going to be a bench seating area to the southeast of the swimming pool, and the area of the proposed driveway is going to have kind of a mounded area here where 221 cubic yards of clean fill are going to be mounded in this driveway turnaround area. There are also some areas of existing fencing located to the north of the existing septic system and the north of the house that are going to be removed, which I believe were installed at one point by an overzealous landscaper who was trying to keep some of the deer away from eating some of the existing plants. But we are removing those and moving those out of the native vegetated areas as part of this application. Once the construction is completed, the project will increase the area of native vegetation on the site by 15,992 square feet. We are proposing a nice trellis garden area, which on the plans that were submitted is called a proposed stumpery garden, and which is going to be in place of the existing raised septic system. And there's also a proposed production garden, which will make some flowers and also food that can be eaten from it, hence the word production garden. Rick, can you please explain some of the details of the proposed changes to the septic system and why we need to have the new IAOWTS in the location that we're proposing it?
Yeah, so how's everybody doing? My name is Rick Wisnowski with the Rayner Group. We're pretty much just removing the existing sanitary system, which consists of a standard septic tank and leaching pools, and replacing it with an IA system. And we need a shallow drain field unit since we are lowering the grade there. The depth of groundwater at that area is only about 4 feet, so we don't have much room to work with. So we're using the shallow drain field, which is shown as the leaching units on the plan. We're utilizing the existing pump station for the proposed that is currently there and connecting it to a manhole, then the IA system, and then it's being distributed to the leaching units. Since we're on a peninsula pretty much here, we don't have much room to put these leaching units. So we tried to maximize the distance from the wetlands, and we came up with this spot. We're not encroaching any closer than the existing sanitary system is. So we believe this is the best solution that we have.
The septic system was also placed in a location that is 100 feet from surface waters. Because otherwise we would have to go to the Health Department Board of Review.
It doesn't really show that here, though. What I'm looking at is there is 72 feet plus to the loading units.
So
Right?
this is a future expansion pool, which we do not believe will. So we're showing the expansion, but actually the existing leaching pools on the septic system are 80.6 feet to the wetlands to the south and 75 feet to the wetlands to the north. And the proposed IA system will be at a minimum of 82 feet to the wetlands and approximately 85 feet from the wetlands to the north. So we're increasing the setback to the north by 10 feet and increasing the setback to the south by 2.2 feet, which is about as much as we can manage based on the area that we have. In addition, the leaching fields. Sorry to step on your toes, Rick. I just thought of this. The leaching fields can't go under any driveway, unlike leaching galleys or leaching pools. You can't put them underneath a driveway, and the health department really discourages.
Because these are shallow units, is that why?
These are shallow drainage.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, they're not made of precast concrete. They're made of it's like a geotech style filter fabric material. So they would crush and then there's a PVC pipe that runs along the top of them that distributes the effluent. So they'd be crushed if it was under the driveway.
Yeah, the benefit that you get from having the shallow drain field without having to have any fill for that system is that you can't. There's very limited area that you can put them in, and also they do sometimes take up more area, but thankfully we were able to fit them in a location that is a little bit more conforming than the existing system.
Chick, is this the first time we've seen a shallow drain field?
I don't have instant recall on all of our applications. This is, it is a very constrained site, obviously.
Right. I just don't remember
I
seeing
feel
it.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like we've seen them. I mean, what's really good is, it's necessary here because of the shallow depth of groundwater, but you get you get extra treatment in the root zone. And so they're good systems. I would definitely encourage it. And it looks like it's needed here.
Right.
And Rick, what was the last thing we heard from the health department about this?
We're pretty much just waiting on approval from you guys. That's the only thing that's holding us up right now.
Okay.
Yeah. And do you guys have any other questions about the IA system at this time?
No.
Okay.
I have a question about the walkways, if I may.
Yeah, sure. So I'll let Joe talk about some of the proposed landscape design, and then we'll go through that stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I can share my screen.
Sure.
here.
Let me stop sharing, and then you can go.
Yeah. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, great. This is just a prettier version of the plan Mike just shared with you, and I think Mike did a good job of describing, so I'll be brief. With the improvement in the septic system, our clients saw an opportunity to improve the ecological and aesthetic quality of the property, as well as to try to create a continuous path system throughout the property so that they could occupy or access more of the property. Starting at the property line, the driveway is being reconfigured. We're proposing to, instead of have a fully paved driveway width, to do what we call tire strips of pavement with a native planted median in the center of it. This reduces the scale visually and physically of the driveway, makes it feel more in the scale of the pathway systems that we're proposing. So those strips of driveway blur and blend into a pathway system that wraps around the central low landform, as well as connecting into the boardwalks, which are showing, moving through the existing cedar trees on the page top of the page. We have a small parking court near the production garden. The production garden, as Mike described, are raised beds, as well as a in-ground bed that will include cutting flowers and food for consumption. And we also have the stumpery garden on the right-hand side of the page over top of the existing and proposed septic system. We're calling it a stumpery garden because our concept here is that we will literally have stumps of deceased trees from other properties, not from this one, hopefully beautiful cedar stumps and that can be placed in this garden along with ferns, mosses, lichens, and create a garden of decomposition within this to increase habitat within the property. All of the vegetated areas are proposed to be a mix of native plants, primarily our sandplain meadow mixes, complemented by native shrubs at the transitions. I can quickly show a comparison diagram that we prepared of proposed and existing. This just visualizes the significant improvements. The top is the existing condition, pink, representing existing gravel driveway, reduction in the gravel driveway in the proposed, as well as, I think the most significant portion of this project is that we're adding, as Mike outlined, over 15,000 square feet of native vegetation.
It's going to be spectacular.
And the walkways,
Yeah.
are those on pilings, or like what are those about?
The boardwalks, the boardwalk paths on the north side of the property, is that what you're asking about?
I guess the application talks about elevated walkways.
Yeah, so we have two elevated walkways linking from the pier here at the main house through the existing cedars. These are the existing cedars, so it's weaving through the existing cedars, then touching grade again here, and then we've got another boardwalk departing from grade and arcing to the right. These are elevated walkways. They have untreated wood posts directly buried into grade at the center line of the boardwalk, a joist system spanning from the beams at the post, and then boards placed vertically so that we can maximize the sunlight penetration through the deck. The decks are also elevated just under 30 inches from existing grade in order to increase the light penetration from the sides.
Do you have a picture of that?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have
I can bring
a,
up the
sectional detail. I have that I can bring.
You got
up.
that? Great.
Yeah.
Are those 4 foot in width?
They are
Oh, you said-
3 feet. No, wait, my math is bad. 2'6" and 4 feet wide. Sorry.
4 feet 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. 4 feet.
So we got 2'6" plus 2'6". So what we have is this is the center post and the beam, and then joist spanning, and then the deck boards are set vertically, and they're cantilevered 15 inches to either side of the central joist and structure system for a total width of 4 feet.
How often do you have to have, how frequently do you have to have a joist in there? How many feet?
So our posts are spaced roughly 8 feet on center.
Okay.
And then our beams are at the post, and our joists are spanning from post to post.
And because the height is below code requirements for handrail, you guys dodged that bullet?
That's the intent, is to keep it low enough to keep these very minimal while maximizing the amount of daylight, given the angle of the sun, to penetrate underneath it, in addition to the the open structure of the surface of the boardwalks.
How slippery does a deck like that get after 3 to 5 years?
It's a really great question, because we're setting the narrow edge of the board vertical. We're going to have a lot greater slip resistance on this deck than a typical deck board placed on the flat.
And how much space is there between these vertical boards?
Yeah, let me see if we've got that cross section here. Sorry, you're asking a good question, and I'm gonna have to. I think we've got them spaced an inch and a half on center. So we're using a 2x4 deck board, and we're gapping it the width of another board, so they're an inch and a half apart.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What's the material of the decking?
We're still exploring sustainable options. We're looking at black locust, thermally modified ash materials. We're hoping to avoid using tropical hardwoods and looking for sustainable alternatives. But currently, I think planning to use black locust.
FYI, there's a organization in Philadelphia somewhere that has acquired large amounts of decking from Coney Island and elsewhere after the last storms. And I put some in my house of Ipe. It's bomb proof.
I've got a train going by here, and I'm rushing to find.
You can find Coney Island decking secondhand, and it's remarkably inexpensive. And it's Ipe.
Okay, that's great to know.
I mean,
what is Ipe?
Brazilian.
It's a tropical hardwood.
I don't think you're allowed to. I don't think the state is allowed to use it anymore. People say it's sustainable, but there's a debate about that. But there is boardwalk material that's available on the secondhand market. It's beautiful stuff.
And is it beautiful? Why? Just because it's available and it's like nice to reuse things? What attracts you to it, Will?
Yeah, it's a hardwood, and you're repurposing something from Coney Island. How cool is that?
It's like my counter that's an old bowling alley.
Yeah, this is a very interesting.
Yeah,
this is a very interesting walkway. Good job.
Yeah, we really like the idea of it because we also found it to be consistent with the LWRP in that we can really kind of the owners will be able to enjoy their natural areas, and because it's also elevated, it's going to facilitate the movement of wildlife around the property too.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. And as opposed to just having like pedestrian paths, you'll actually get those the areas below it to be vegetated.
Right.
So
yeah. Maybe we'll get you to make a presentation when they're talking about John Steinbeck Park, because I don't think anybody's thinking along these lines. Sort of to my dismay, they're putting in a rockway there, and I don't think it's going to be light permeable. But I don't know. Who knows? But this is great.
Great.
Any other questions?
Nice client.
I see a hand raised.
Okay.
Patty Nelson.
I'm gonna ask Patty Nelson to unmute.
So I should be unmuted now. My only question was,
Can you
I
just
think
state your
they
name for the
mentioned-
record, please?
Yes,
Thank
David
you.
Nelson.
And are you a neighbor or?
I'm across the cove from this property.
Usually we ask people to give their names and addresses. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but we usually try to do that in the record.
Okay, David Nelson, 3 Bluff Point Road.
Okay, thank you.
So my only question was, I think the fill number was 211 cubic yards, which strikes me as a significant amount compared to that property, which is, you know, about 2 feet above mean high water. So I would like to know where that fill is going and why.
Okay, sorry. If the board would like me to answer that, I can answer that.
Sure.
Okay. So number one, we are actually going to be reducing the amount. So while we were saying that we imported fill, because we're also removing the elevated retaining wall, there's going to be a net reduction of fill by about 50 cubic yards overall. But the new fill that's going in is all for the driveway turnaround area. So there's you know, this mounded area that will also be vegetated with native vegetation. So I understand the concern, but we did try and make sure that any fill that is on the site is actually going to, so we're going to have a net reduction overall.
But are you going to take the fill from one place and put it into this new location and then just add it to till you get to the point that you are, you know, fulfill your design requirements, or are you getting rid of that fill and then bringing in all new fill?
I do not believe we can use the existing fill that is where the septic system is, because we have to dispose of it based on how the health department wants us to dispose of it. So it'll probably, I'm guessing it'll be new fill, and we have just, you know, specific designs for how the mound around the driveway is going to be installed. So that was just based on what our numbers are. So the answer, so your question was whether we would bring in fill until we were done. I guess we basically, because we are removing this area and then adding this area, we were able to just say that the septic system area has 279 cubic yards that's being removed, and the driveway area has 221 that's being added. So we were able to just do those calculations very cleanly.
Mike, if I could just ask, I see in the lower left corner of the Rayner plan, cut and fill calculations. Is there another place where you have this net cut fill? Because the ones I see in the Rayner plan aren't quite consistent with what you just said.
Mike, do you want to share your screen again? I can stop sharing.
Sure.
The suggestion might be to just tabulate what you described, you know, how much cut, how much fill, and how much export.
I understand. Okay, yeah, I will confirm those numbers. Yeah, because you're correct that at the bottom of that it says that there's 221 cubic yards of material to be carted off site. But I believe that we were having a net reduction at the end of the day. But I will make sure that those numbers are all correct, and come back to the board with that information.
Thank you.
So at this circular drive, those are 1 foot contour lines. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
So from the perimeter of the driveway to the top of the center portion, it's about 2.5 feet, something like that, 3.5 feet.
Yes.
And is that the desired effect, to have this sort of elliptical kind of mogul with the driveway around it?
Joe?
Yeah, that is the design intent, to create a subtle undulation on this arrival experience.
It makes me think about Little Island, which I just saw. Totally different in scale, but very interesting having these different elevations with native plantings. Really beautiful.
Can I go back to the walkway? If possible, a question. How deep are the pilings going to be driven to hold the walkway up?
Yeah, we're thinking that they would go down to frost depth, so they would be about 4 feet embedded into the ground.
And how many in total?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
You said they were 8 foot on center?
Correct.
Chick, does this have any effect on by driving these in? Any effect?
Yeah, it's a temporary construction impact. It's something that's commonly done in these areas. I mean, I was going to point out that the walkway does come quite close to the wetlands. And I understand the curvature, but, looking at it, there might be a question if that could be set back farther, or the curvature could change a little bit to set it back farther. But I see a temporary disturbance. Maybe we should get a construction management plan so we understand that a little bit better. It's a good question, Lily.
And those pilings will also be backfilled, correct? Obviously.
Right.
I saw in the previous note.
Correct.
And does this, I'm not sure when you're intending to do this construction, but Chick, does this involve our terrapins driving pilings in?
It could potentially be upland habitat, and we have been looking at conditions to address that. It's not a winter hibernation, it's more of a nesting season consideration. And what we've been doing is putting conditions on the permits so that is addressed.
Okay.
And how far, I'm sorry, because I can't see on my paper copies, how far is the walkway to the wetlands at the closest point?
Closest point.
You bring up a good point, Lily, because we don't usually let fences go through wetlands. And here we're like giving a nod to, potentially giving a nod to a walkway through the wetlands.
And what is the purpose of this? It's not like it's
the wetlands, but the buffer.
Buffer.
I mean, that's
But even so, we don't usually.
wetlands buffer. That's a
15
fine
feet.
line on that property.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the point of the walkway? I mean, I understand for a lovely stroll.
It is essentially for pedestrian access to the native area of the property, because there are we did not want to have we were going to have just regular pedestrian paths that went through, and I had suggested instead of doing that, having elevated boardwalks so that you did have the ability to have vegetation underneath. It is what is done for elevated dock walkways,
Right.
and so part of this was that I wasn't sure what the harbor committee would think about them, and so I thought we would propose them and try and get some feedback about them, to be completely honest about it. So,
But you think the boardwalk is less intrusive than a grade level permeable pathway
Like an oyster shell path,
or
Well,
anything?
if it's going through the buffer, we wouldn't allow
a pathway.
a pathway like that. It would have to be like going to a dock or going to a
And-
shed or an outbuilding or something, maybe.
So this property, the length of it is, if it's every 8 feet, that's a lot of pilings to be driven in.
I don't think they're really driven in. If I'm,
I don't think we should say pilings. That these
Yeah,
are
they're
not.
just-
They're not
it's
pilings.
like
These
a
are
fence
just
post.
posts. These are just posts that are being set into grade. So we're talking about, post hole digger creating a 12-inch diameter hole and setting these posts in. It's not being driven in.
And what are they being set in?
Yeah, is there
They're
footing?
being set in compacted soil. So you're removing the soil, setting the post, and then replacing the soil and compacting it around the post.
So Chick, can you make an analogy between this and a fence, which might have the same kind of, pilings? We would never allow a fence running through a buffer, would we?
No, we have always looked to have them removed from the buffer area.
And this really doesn't differ much from a fence, does it? I mean, in function it does, but in terms of intrusion into the buffer, it's kind of the same thing, right?
I would agree with that.
Well, except that a fence in the buffer creates a barrier for animals and of various types, and this doesn't.
That's true.
I mean, I've seen elevated walkways proposed in preference to paths, because the paths cause more disturbance to the natural vegetation. But it does fundamentally raise a question as to whether these are structures that actually are subject to some setback rules.
Yeah.
Fred, I don't know whether you can speak on this. Is this, can a walkway be a structure that needs to be set back?
Oh, a walkway, it depends on.
8 o'clock.
walkway. Yeah,
Well, it's a raised walkway. It's not just simply a path.
yeah.
It's a structure.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sort
definitely
of
structure.
in love with the whole thing, but I'm not sure that it's really copacetic with the waterways law.
And you can get to the stump garden without it.
Chick, what do you think? What do you think, Fred?
Just looking at definitions. Structure is anything constructed or erected on or under the ground or upon another structure or building, including but not limited to buildings, driveways, walkways, decks, patios, regardless of method of construction. It also includes fences, walls, retaining walls, berms. So a structure under the law is subject to a 75-foot setback.
Right.
As I've said previously before, just about everything's a structure.
That's right.
Where is the 75-foot line on this?
That's a difficult question because it comes
The
from both
middle of the
sides.
property.
Yeah, it's the middle of the property essentially.
Uh-huh.
Over on the east side, there is a 75-foot shown from the wetlands to the, looks like one of the components of the sanitary system, maybe the existing system, just to give you a relative look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. I really liked it, but I don't think it works with the wetland law.
So just for the sake of discussion, what if we pulled them further away from the wetlands? And what if we were to? So right now, what we've proposed thus far is an IA system upgrade where that was like the main part of what this application was. And then because there was disturbance, the clients, the owners believed that, well, we're going to have to revegetate something. So why don't we try and propose stuff that why don't we propose a revegetation plan for the whole site? So that was the second thing. So right now, what we're proposing, except for the boardwalks, are things that would normally be considered to be mitigation measures. If you would we be able to then instead, or in addition, propose to covenant part of the property as part of any mitigation for the boardwalks?
I don't know what you have in mind. What are you going to covenant?
Well, so the existing structures that were installed that are here, the house was pre-existing non-conforming, and then it was renovated in between 2008 and 2012, and so was the swimming pool in the house. When those things were done, it was prior to the current version of the wetlands law, so there were no actual covenanted buffer requirements at the time. So if we were to propose a covenanted buffer that would cover essentially the north and south side of the property, so this would be approximately 25,000 square feet, which is 40% of the property that we would propose to covenant. If and I guess technically it could be more if we were to pull this walkway further away from the wetland so that it wasn't just 15 feet there.
Well, the issue is that if you took a look at like a 50-foot buffer from, that red edge, and you calculated that it's probably more. I mean, that number is so big that you talk about being buffer, but in fact, it's probably not more than what is formulaically prescribed by the law. Would you agree, Chick? I mean, if you took this is a peninsula, so if you step back 50 feet all the way around the edge of the property from the mean high water line or the wetlands line, it's...
Yeah, I mean, I'll directly
number.
answer where Mike is going. I don't think the covenant necessarily offsets the potential impact. I actually think you're in a situation of looking at 285-9D, which is those, we've used this before, but projects that do not satisfy the standards are subject to that no practical alternative test.
Mm-hmm.
And, while we're at it, there are wetlands on the south side of the property as well.
Right.
So we are talking about, it is pervious, and I understand you need a turnaround, and there may be some considerations, but you are moving the driveway closer to the wetlands to the south. And there also seems to be a lot of walkways in that area. So I think you may want to, kind of relook at this, check your ability to conform with 285-9D, and, give us an update.
Yeah, I'm not the committee. I'm only one person, but I so love that walkway, but I don't think it conforms to the law.
Okay.
You can ask the other people, and maybe other people disagree, but I'm struggling.
Well, let me answer that partially. I mean, we're looking at getting an IA system, which to me is the big positive here, and I think we're allowed to make compromises, especially where what's being proposed, although it may not be technically in compliance, it doesn't create any environmental hazard. And I'd have to ask Chick as our environmental expert, but I mean the reason for setbacks is because of structures that have some negative impact. And if we're talking about a structure that doesn't have a quantifiable negative impact on the environment, then I have to look at that differently.
Yeah, but I don't think they're saying that, okay, we're getting an IA system, so therefore we want this walkway. I don't really hear that.
Well, we're allowed to make compromises where there is an overall benefit. I don't know that that the applicant is saying, if I don't get the walkway, I'm not going to put the IA system in. I'm not suggesting that. Other people have said that. And we've actually, in a couple of instances, lost IA systems on that basis. But again, I'm asking Chick whether the walkway has some negative impact. The buffer, as I see on this, this walkway isn't going through the buffer. The buffer is on the outside or the water side of the walkway. So the square foot of buffer is what's on the outside. There are plantings, et cetera, on the inside of the walkway.
I'm not sure about that. I thought that this was kind of cruising over the top of buffer area.
No, the diagram we just had up there showed the buffer being on the outside of it.
Can you put that diagram back up, please?
Yeah, so when we
That shows the
submitted
buffer on the outside of it, I think that's what I'm looking at.
Shouldn't there be a buffer 25 feet around the property regardless, technically?
No, you don't. No, I think you just have to have that formula where it all comes up to the same amount of square footage. Do we have that calculation?
We don't. So technically, when the property was originally installed, the buffer requirements did not exist. So, or at least they didn't exist in the way that they exist right now. So now, if we would have to. I guess the question is, when you propose a buffer now, do you say on the plans that you're proposing a buffer and that it is a certain area that is now a buffer? And is that just all you need to do, or does the village request?
One of the things that we like to see is, like, if you were to say what's required is a 50-foot buffer. So if you drew a dotted line that was 50 feet all the way around from where your wetlands is, and you calculate what that square footage is, then you can do all the wavy curly things you want, but the square footage needs to be the same.
The same.
Right.
Joe, how much did the clients actually want to have the elevated? So I know that the main thing that our clients were looking for was to have that retaining wall removed and have a new IA system installed so that it was at a lower elevation. So my question is, I'm wondering whether we need to propose the walkway right now. So if the walkway is the thing that would be holding this application up, then if we were to remove a structured walkway or bring it further away from the wetlands, would that be something that the Harbor Committee would be more accepting of?
Speaking for myself, I would like to see that calculation of what a 50-foot buffer going all the way around this property, what that number would be, and what the buffer proposed is in terms of square footage. I don't have a real sense of that. I guess, did we say that, the middle of the property is about 75 feet in from the edge? The red line here is the wetlands. Is that
the outside of this buffer is the wetland line? Yeah. So 75 feet is.
No. Go 50 feet. Go 50 feet.
Okay. Yep.
50 feet would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you drew that all the way around, even though you're putting an enormous amount of native plantings in here, it doesn't quite meet the law. You do have an exceptional piece of property.
I think because this is such an unusual property, I mean, applying the same requirements we would to another property is impossible. And obviously they have a pre-existing, structure here, which they, don't have to change. Again, I think it's a question as to whether we're getting a net benefit with this. Again, I'm not against the walkway, and I'm not saying that I think the walkway, should be set back a certain amount. I was really asking, how we should treat the walkway, and whether it had some negative impact. And I don't think Chick has answered that. If it's a structure that has no negative impact, and again, I have seen elevated walkways proposed, frankly, by the DEC, in preference over let's say a gravel path or on grade path, because it allows for plantings to grow up, the natural plants to grow up underneath it. So I mean, this may be preferable to having people walk on grade in those areas, which we couldn't actually prevent them from walking there. And so this might be preferable to having
John,
create their own.
Can I ask you, John, you're talking about, what was the purpose of that walkway that was elevated? Was it to get out to a boat ramp, or what?
Yeah.
To go to the beach and not disturb the plants underneath.
Right, but that's not what this is.
Well, it's not disturbing I think it's being proposed as preferable to having an on-grade path.
It's kind of it's somewhat of an architectural folly. It doesn't lead to any place.
Exactly.
As far as I can tell. So you could make the argument that it's a folly, and those are nice things, but maybe not appropriate here. If there was a meandering elevated walkway to a dock, that's not a folly. That's a route of circulation.
And I think Chick made a good point that the circular driveway, which I understand the need for it in terms of, or some kind of accommodation for emergency vehicles, it does come really down into close to the wetlands. Yes.
I wanted to clarify that is not a driveway. Mike, if you zoom in there, that's just a reinforced soil zone that is still planted with native vegetation. That's CP6 zone. So the driveway is only the 2 tire strips that are going around the top side of the mound. The soil is reinforced, and so that fire vehicles could make that loop and drive over the native vegetation, but it is not a paved driveway.
Do you have a picture of that?
That's very well thought out, I think. When you look at it, Marianne, do you see what he's talking about with the drive strips?
I agree with Tremendous. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. That's not a wide, 8-foot wide, consistent material.
No,
What kind of material?
Most of that zone for the turnaround is native vegetation.
I think that's quite elegant.
What are the 2 strips? I'm sorry. The white represents what?
The 2 tire strips, and that's a gravel surface, a pervious gravel surface where the tires of the vehicle would run. In the center, that zone that's stippled is native vegetation, planted median underneath or between the wheels. And then it for the fire vehicles, which would happen probably rarely, if ever, is just a reinforced soil, a sandier soil profile to support a truck if it needed to make that turnaround, but is all native vegetation.
And then you'd have to build a fire department afterwards to repair your landscaping.
Right.
All right.
So I know John keeps asking, and all I can really say is that typically when we see elevated walkways to access a beach or a dock, they're generally perpendicular and a shortest route. Mm-hmm. And the idea is to elevate them and use through flow decking so that vegetation can grow underneath. The impact of the elevated walkway, I imagine there's some displacement of native buffer. Certainly it's minimized by allowing vegetation to grow. But that vegetation is cut, especially if those walkways are less than the height needed for not having to have a fence on it. So I think there is some direct quantifiable displacement of buffer. And I just do get the sense that, the law does speak to a structure, and that puts it into 285-9D. And I think the applicant should look at that as well as the 50-foot calculation, which can be variable. So maybe some type of walkway could be appropriate if the buffer calculations worked out, and maybe it's set back a little bit more. But it seems to me to be a fairly substantial installation.
Right.
Definition wise, it is a structure, and it's coming very close to the wetlands. So I would look at alternatives, and I think that's what the law really speaks to.
Right.
If the walkway was not part of the application, what would I don't know if I can ask this question, so you guys can clarify. But
Oh,
if
no,
the
we
walkway
did-
wasn't part, what was that?
We do that from time to time where you just
Okay.
take an element out, but everything else is a go. So, but I think we'd still like to see the calculation of the buffer. But I think you're right. The stumbling block is the walkway.
Right. I mean, we could always try to work up the walkway or something later and then come back for a modification or something like that. But I just know how the owner is antsy to have that retaining wall removed and installed a new system. So so my question is if it was not for the walkway, would we be able to close the hearing, or do you need that buffer information, even though that the area on the north side of the house here is these structures are all existing, so they would be buffer 50 feet wide on the north side of the house here, and we're dealing with an existing turnaround that we're now going to revegetate, and so without those things, so without those walkways, would the project be?
I don't quite understand what you're saying. Are you suggesting that the buffer move down to the north side of the house? The green, the chartreuse area would come all the way down to the house? I'm not sure what I heard you say.
Well, I guess the question that I would have is, if we were only doing this, the septic system and changing the driveway, would we have to propose a wetland buffer specifically? Because these two things are the native vegetation and the septic system are typically things that are proposed as mitigation measures. So we are proposing those things outright as the main aspects of the application. So would we need to propose a buffer specifically as part of that? I know how important they are. I just don't know how the law reacts to us proposing something that is essentially making the site better to begin with. So we're improving setbacks for the septic system, and we're improving the amount of native vegetation that's on site. So I wasn't sure if we would have to specifically have a native buffer proposed. What I was showing was what we could propose as part of this discussion. And I could certainly come back and have a proposal for a buffer, but as part of the initial application, that was not in the discussion because we were not sure how the board would treat what we're proposing.
Right. Chick, I don't know. Can we bifurcate this? We've done it a couple of times, but where we give a go-ahead for those two items. I'm just not sure that there's much reason for the applicant to come back. If we really feel like maybe there should be more buffer up there north of the house, or what, I don't know, is that north? I get confused.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, we're treating it as north. I guess technically it's northeast,
Yeah,
because
whatever.
north is actually towards towards the left of the drawing. Um, but the space that is, I'm sorry for jumping around, but I think this is, I already have this scaled. But the space that is between the wetlands and the existing, the proposed limit of work here and the proposed production garden is 50 feet.
Wow, perfect.
I'll just say that, Mike came in originally saying that there's a lot of unnatural vegetation, lawn that was being removed and things like that. We do have a situation where the turnaround is getting closer to the wetlands, and I'm kind of looking at an existing aerial photograph, and I guess currently the turnaround is just grass area on each side of the driveway.
Yeah. Yep.
And is that stabilized soil, or it's just compacted, or?
It's stabilized turf. Is I believe that was what the when it was originally installed in like 2012. That's what was proposed, was to have it to be stabilized turf lawn. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely there is an improvement with the tire tread, minimized with a lot of natural vegetation. I think that's a good thing. I'm just reading standards for issuing a permit, and it does say permits shall delineate a specific buffer zone from the wetlands boundary for activities regulated under this chapter. The approving authority shall, to the maximum extent, impose a minimum buffer zone of 50 feet for turf, fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and similar treatments, landscaping, or other clearing or disturbance of natural vegetation. So obviously the committee has authority to do what they feel is appropriate under the law. This provides the guidance. And I always like to see things on a plan, so we know what we're approving. Mm-hmm. So it just seems to me as though showing the buffer, you do have very beneficial aspects of this. Doing the calculation, I don't think should be too difficult. And that would help to justify, some of the things that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just my feeling, trying to look at the law and thread the needle here.
Yeah, when you say justify some of the other things, Chick, you're not talking about the walkways, though, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already had that discussion, that there are potential impacts, and it's quite close to wetlands, and it is defined as a structure. So that would require, that would be the alternative analysis under 285-9D. Now we're just talking about, meeting the standards for issuance of a permit that essentially conforms. So it's
right. So I don't think we're going to get this done tonight.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think we need to have those buffer calculations. Mm-hmm. We need to see how close you can get it to the magic number. And I really appreciate your creativity, and it's a beautiful spot. I think we just have to pay attention to what Chapter 285 says. That's what we're here for. So
right, and that's really what we've come to is that not what we've that sounds bad, but that's not what I meant. I really just meant that the code, the Chapter 285 has specific structure setbacks, and technically under the definitions of that, a walkway is a structure. So therefore, we have to meet that setback or show why we can't meet that setback. So I understand.
Right. Okay, so I would suggest that we adjourn this.
Compromises here. It's not set in stone. So, especially where it's impossible to have the structures meet the required setbacks, as on your lot.
Right. Yeah, I think that also just real quick. One part of my feeling about the walkways is that when you I did feel like that they were kind of in keeping with the policies of the LWRP, and I thought that not that Chapter 285 talks as much about providing pedestrian pathways to enjoy maritime access to areas of habitat and that kind of stuff. But I like the idea of someone being able to enjoy their natural setting. So when they asked whether they could have pathways through here, I said, I'm actually not sure whether the agencies would approve it. I know that elevated walkways are something that are more acceptable in certain cases because they do allow vegetation as opposed to no vegetation. I'm just trying to explain how we got to where we are. Yeah.
I don't think any of us fault you for coming up with something that's beautiful here.
Mhm.
And I think most of us feel we have to say probably not.
Right. I
But
understand.
I think that we're going to have to adjourn this, and we hope to see this come back and have some further refinement on the buffer question.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
This is David Nelson from Bluff Point Road, across the cove from this particular property. So my question to Mr. Shiano, who has done a lot of work, and I appreciate his efforts. How high is that elevated walkway as you expect it? And also, how wide is the entire property? You know, kind of from, I guess it's kind of east to west. You know, I'm not sure people really understand how small this property is. And it is also on a private road. So there are no people walking down this road enjoying the views and, you know, the natural environment. So I would like to know the answers to those questions.
So the first one, I think, is the width of the property at its max or min, and how high. I think, what did we say, that they're 4 feet high or 3 feet high, the walkway?
2.5 feet high, 4 feet wide.
2.5 feet high. So I'm not sure which direction, Mr. Nelson, you're in, but are you concerned that you might actually see those walkways standing up from where your property is?
Well, yes, I would. And everyone else on the cove will see those walkways. And I mean, you see this, and you can see this on Google Maps. It's a very small property, and I understand that it's you know, it's difficult to work with, but I'm just saying, adding elevation to you know, this property is not going to be a positive experience for everyone else. And I would also say that there's almost no vegetation on most of these, most of that little beach, because it's, you know, the cove around there is maybe 2 feet deep. I mean, there's just no vegetation there. And so it's not like if you say, I have a elevated walkway and you know, there'll be space and light for stuff underneath. Well, there's nothing underneath that right now.
Well, there's a planting plan, but I do appreciate what you're saying is that where is your property? Are you on this map? Are we all looking at the same map?
I would be over on the right side here. You know, so yeah, you know, kind of down to the right. You know, I'm just saying that I know properties down at the bottom of this picture here that have elevated docks that are like 10 feet above water line. And they're obtrusive and unnecessary. And I may have actually lived here when they were built. And so perhaps that's on me. But, you know, now I realize they're very high, they're obtrusive, they're metal. And, you know, it really is not an addition to our environment.
So I think you bring up a good point, and I hadn't really thought about it. In my mind, somehow, I thought that there would be quite a bit of vegetation around this walkway. And I had not thought about it, that walkway standing out from the water and being visible, or across this inlet.
Yes, well, it's very visible, and you see that there's no vegetation there other than the one little tree line, which I don't know exactly where that is versus the buffer line. My particular point, I'm sorry to say, is the property which is south of that has been out of compliance for Harbor Committee jurisdiction. Yes, you know, I think it's 28 Bluff Point Road, Long Point Road, which is being constructed right now. So you'll see, if you look at the beach line, that it seems like there's a kind of cutout there. And so there was a white sand beach on that property where there's no white sand beach anywhere else on this cove.
Are you talking about the left side or the right side of this peninsula?
So that is, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't tell you, but so the property we're talking about is 34 at the top left, and then as you come down, I'm seeing a property line in yellow, and then below that you see kind of a construction site. And so that's the property. If you look out, they have a cove, and there's a complete cutout on that cove that has no vegetation, which I would suggest is unusual.
It's currently under construction. I'm sorry to jump in. It's currently under construction, and there are wetlands permits that were issued to revegetate the entire site. And so at the end of the project, everything will be revegetated.
Yes.
Can we go back to this project? I think Mr. Nelson brings up a good point, which is from the water, you're going to be looking back at the elevated walkway, and it'll almost read as a bulkhead or it's an intervention that is not going to complement too many neighbors. I could understand that. In the interest of moving along, can you present something with the information that Marianne has asked for and talk to your client about getting rid of the walkway? And I suspect we will get a lot closer to closure on this if we go that route.
And maximizing buffer if need be when the numbers come back.
Understood.
Okay. All right. So can we have a motion to continue the public hearing, but can we have a motion to adjourn this application until November 4th?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good night.
Thanks, Doris.
So that brings us to the end of our scheduled meetings. It's now 8:37. I don't know how much patience people have. There were a couple of issues that I thought we might want to talk about here, but maybe there's another format. I'm very curious about those new plans potentially for the Havens Beach IA system. Is that something we want to talk about as a group now? I have not looked at them. I have not opened it up yet. What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Can I give a 30-second synopsis, having
Sure.
looked at both of them?
Yeah.
The engineer is a very conscientious guy. He's using the same requirements that restrict him from reducing this overwhelming piece of engineering. In an earlier application, we saw that somebody had asked for 5 variances from the Suffolk County Health Department. I think that I would be quite willing to sit down and talk with McLean Associates, the engineer, and try to carve out a path to getting a variance. I spoke with the senior Suffolk County Health Department variance guy. He's not the guy that was approving this plan. The guy that approved this plan I talked to and was not particularly educated as to options. My suggestion is that I talk to McLean and see if he's willing to help put together a proposal where we could look at a lower threshold. We don't need, he's basing this on 100 cars. The entry booth to the Havens Beach says no more than 75 cars. There's 28 car spaces in the zone. The numbers are all goofy. Moving forward, let's see if we can put together something very simple as a alternative, which is scale appropriate to the use of that facility. And the example that already exists is Wade's Beach, and that has been approved by the county, and it has very, very similar circumstances. And I recommend everybody look at that facility so that you can, I'm not in favor of IA, but I think we could put an IA system in that's scale appropriate. It's more like a residential project. Both proposals that McLean has given are north of $200,000. That is an absurdity. And I think we can work towards coming to a better resolution.
I would agree, and I would encourage you to go forward. I think we really need to burrow into what those assumptions are and then build on something that's more closer to reality. I'm sorry, does it say 75 people or 75 cars at Havens Beach?
I think it's, that's a good question. It might even be people. Mike, who is running this thing? Because everybody says we're very close to getting approval. Who is it Melissa that's running this, John, or who's the force behind all of this?
Well, they're waiting for Sag Harbor approval. That's that's the bottom line. It's the Natural Resources Department that's running this. And Melissa's just a senior person at that department. And again, they're doing 60 of these. So, but at this point, we're looking for village approval, and I believe that Deputy Mayor Gardella is sort of taking the point for the village.
He seemed a bit, when we were at the meeting, I know one of the things for the leaching area, they wanted to put a 60-foot by 90-foot cement square, essentially, that was 3 feet high to accommodate.
Well, they've come up with an alternative, and that's to move it to the property to the west. Both solutions are way out of scale and north of $200,000. Would it be possible to talk to Melissa or whomever and see if we can do a modified presentation to get this thing down to a realistic scale?
I agree with you, and I think though we need to understand really what what they're scaling on, what those assumptions are. You and I have talked about that, and I don't know whether or not that's in any of the materials that Melissa sent us out, how they extrapolated.
Matt told us, and there's a number, and I can get it, but it's based on 100 cars, I believe.
Well, it's not a matter of I believe, it's a matter that we need to know.
He did. He said it was
You said
100
cars,
cars.
Marianne. Yeah.
Well, you said I believe, so to me that.
I second. He said 100.
It's on the plans, I believe.
And
but-
essentially, he also said it's a cookie cutter system.
Okay.
And Havens isn't a cookie cutter. You can't compare Havens to Flying Point Beach to Cooper's Beach for the usage.
Right.
But he discussed minimums and this wasn't much above the minimum. But Will, what I wanted to ask you is Wade's Beach, what is that sized for? What's the size? What's the basis for sizing that? And I'm not sure how much difference. I never got straight as to how much smaller that is than what's being proposed for Havens.
Well, they get a variance because they have a parking lot there that probably has 250 or 350 marked car places. And if you go there, it's a huge parking facility that's marked out. I'll get the number from Wade's because I've talked to the engineer, and I'll get the number again from Matt, but I think I believe it's 100. And see what we can do. The variance would be simply, and I already talked to the engineer about this at Suffolk County. If we can convince them, it's like a practicable alternative.
Right.
That's all. That's all I'm asking.
And
So
I
let's
don't
go with
think,
a practicable alternative.
and I don't think that it's impossible or maybe even that difficult to get variances from Suffolk County.
According to this guy, it was not.
Yeah.
So, and he's the guy. He's the head of the variance committee for Suffolk County Health Department.
Well, that's great. And like, I want to put one in my yard and I need all these different variances and the engineer's telling me it's not a problem. So that's hardly like hard confirmed fact, but I think we're coming up with a couple of different situations where, you know, variances with good reason and solid numbers can be had. I think what I just don't want this train to go zooming around and suddenly like the Village Board of Trustees signs off on this. So if you agree, we had that meeting when we went to the Village Board, I think in September, and said that we wanted to look at this and maybe present some alternatives. I think I'd like to just write like a really short little email to like Gardella and LaRocca, the whole village board, and say that we've looked at this and we're coming up with some ideas. And just because you haven't heard from us, it doesn't mean that we're not actively working on this. And please give us a bit more time and we'll present something to you. Is that fair?
Yes.
What do you think?
I think we need to be more specific. And I said this about the letter, and rather it was the August meeting, but I said this about the letter in August.
But we
And
don't have specifics, John.
I can, you know what?
That's
Look, I don't want to get in a pissing match here. John, wait a minute. I can help this. The letter would say, we want to reduce the scale. And that's what we're talking about. And in the code, we talk about scale and appropriateness in all kinds of things. So we want to reduce the scale. And that's what we ask that's what we tell the trustees that we're looking at is an opportunity to reduce the scale of the intervention.
I'm not disagreeing with you on it. I'm asking what the reduction is. Are you looking for a 10% reduction? Are you looking for a 50% reduction?
John, you're making it difficult. You're making it difficult right now. The answer is right now, we want to write a letter to the trustees and say, please don't close this door.
Right.
We would like to investigate the opportunity to reduce the scale. I don't know the answer to that. Personally, I think you could reduce it, and I've already been talking to engineers, you can reduce it by 75%. But I don't want to do that. And the reason they see you can reduce it by 75% or more is because the use of the outhouse as it is de minimis. It's not much.
Right.
The Wade's Beach was designed to take 30,000 gallons out a month. They took out 300 gallons. So in the height of the summer. So there are examples that are so similar, but nobody else has been looking at them. And that's what we want to do, reduce the scale.
Well, I think that's what you have
I'm
to say
talking,
to the
John.
village board. I'd like to finish with what I started talking to Will about, but what I'm suggesting here is that you say in the letter what you just said.
Right.
In other words, that there are examples of a much smaller scale, which would have a much smaller impact. And you'd like the opportunity to investigate that further. I mean, that's adding some specifics that the board.
Okay, fair enough. I'll do that, and I'll send it to Fred and to Mary Ann and to all the rest of you for vetting. And then we'll put that together. I'd like to do it ASAP to the trustees.
Right. I would like to get this on our way to them by Sunday night. Is that possible?
Yeah.
So that means getting it to us on Saturday.
Yep.
So that we can go a little bit back and forth and then have the final thing on Sunday that can go to everybody.
I can do that.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else that's burning that we want to talk about tonight?
I have to go read to my kids. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
So we're ready to adjourn, Marianne?
I think we're ready to adjourn. I was just waiting to see if anybody had anything else that they thought was important. All right, can I have a motion to it? Did I hear yes?
No, you didn't.
All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Good. Thank you. Good meeting, hard work. Thank
A
you.
lot of work tonight. Take care, all.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Doris. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good night, Karen.
You too.
Bye,
Take care.
John.
Bye, John.
All right. Good night.